Internet, I am the cow. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And women explore for eternity in the Garden of Sacrifice. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the films with an S, before
sunrise,
before
sunset,
before
midnight.
Wow.
And today is also a special day because I feel today is like bring your wife to work day. Bring your spouse to work day.
2/3 of yeah, right.
So joining us for this episode, because so this is again filling out the request bag. We are, as we've been discussing in previous episodes, trying to make sure that we cut through all the requests that we've been building up for years.
Request roundup.
And not fulfilling them. And I think this is actually the last one. Is this the
last one before I tacked on the Cornetto trilogy because they were on the Facebook message and yada, yada, yada.
And believe it or not, we're still getting requests online. So thank you everyone who are still sending us requests that we're not going to listen to. But the request was to do the Before trilogy, and I thought what would be interesting, and this is awkward now because there are 5 people in the room staring at me.
Yep.
But I thought it would be interesting to look at the Before trilogy from the point of view of 3 couples, all at 3 different stages of their relationship.
Whoa.
And so joining us today is my wife, Shivali Gulab. How are you, Shivali?
Hi, everyone. I'm great, thank you.
Your partner,
Yes,
Jamie Walsh.
Miss Jamie Walsh.
Hi, I'm the only one who's not a spouse.
I'm not a spouse.
You say partner.
Oh, I'm sorry, partner. I'm sorry.
I'm a partner. I'm a partner.
We're all partners.
Yes.
Yeah. What up, partner? And then you might have also recognized the voice of our 2 returning friends from last name basis, Patrick and Francesca. Welcome back.
Hey,
to the podcast.
how's it going?
Welcome.
3rd time around now, and we've been on your podcast once. You've been on ours twice.
We've done a live show.
We've done a live show.
We've run the gambit of this sort of, put it on your phone, listen to it later entertainment.
Yes.
Podcast, as we call them. How is everyone doing? I feel like we should do a round table first, of course, get it out of the way. How's everyone doing on this sweaty, hot Friday evening that we're all getting together to talk about movies?
Ooh, I'm doing good. I'm glad that the week is over. Ready for the weekend.
Yeah. How about you, Jamie?
I'm good. Actually, I'm really nostalgic tonight. Today was my boss's last day, so I lost my mentor. No,
sweet.
it's okay. Yeah, he's a good guy, and he's got a promotion. He's really happy, so it's good. But yeah, I was happy to have a nice thing to come to because I have so much work to do on Monday. This is a lovely thing to come to.
How about you, Shivali? This is so weird. I'm talking to Shivali.
Yeah,
How are you doing, Shivali?
Interview your wife.
So, Shivali, how are you?
Well, it's pretty much the first time we've spoken today, I think.
Yeah, that is true. To be fair, we have a child, so we don't really speak much anymore.
And I've also been traveling. I just got back this morning, red eye from San Diego, and I'm missing San Diego. I love San Diego.
You want to move to San Diego?
I want to move to San Diego.
That's what this is?
It's out there.
Okay.
Now it's going to happen.
Now we're going to soak
They're
in
gonna
that.
talk
yeah.
about it later.
Patrick, bring us home. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. I don't have any news, but I'm doing great.
Make up something.
I just got rejected from the astronaut program.
I know you're really hoping for that.
But I still feel great.
Yeah.
I mean, they considered my application, and that's enough for me.
Yeah, I think you still got some
shoe
years
size
on
is
you.
an important part of that.
Whoa,
And you shouldn't. You don't have to worry about what they're, it's their fault for not buying enough boots.
It's true. Actually, I
agree.
learned that I wouldn't be able to become an astronaut because of my height. I would not
Same
not
as
fit
Air
the program.
Force. Yeah, Air Force is like
Right.
a 5'7"
That's my excuse.
I learned I couldn't be an astronaut based on my general physicality and demeanor, I think is really
Yeah.
what they
Yeah.
taught me there.
I think
Yeah.
lack of knowledge was
Yeah,
also.
I
a
learned
part.
it. Yeah, I
that
can't
was
do
it for
math,
me.
so I was
They
pretty
basically
much
told me I
toast.
was generally unqualified.
Well, something that astronauts cannot do in space is go through the span of a 20-so-odd year relationship, or else your bones will grow weird and you'll probably die. Like that transition? That was a classic Kroll transition back to the film.
Nailed it.
I like the way you did that.
Yeah, this trilogy I had really not known a lot about other than Mr. Richard Linklater was the director. And
For all 3 of them?
For all 3 of them.
Oh.
And I when I hear the name, I'm left with a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, despite the fact he's made amazing films across the board, except for the one that I don't particularly enjoy, which we've discussed here, which is Boyhood.
Yeah.
Oh, we haven't seen that, but
Interesting.
you know what? You mentioned that movie. Did you somehow?
I thought Ethan Hawke was in that one too.
He is.
He is.
Okay,
yeah.
he was.
Yep.
All right, I thought so. I didn't watch it.
He was the boy.
No, he was not the but he might as well have been.
Yeah.
Because that film, I
So this guy really has a thing with time.
he does.
Let it
It's a-
go,
it's a
dude.
one specific
Let it go.
high maintenance thing.
It's he and that's sort of why I was a little wary, Shahir, when we were asked to do these episodes, because I didn't particularly. I see Boyhood, and I know we disagree, and let's not get into the semantics yet, because I already know that
Not in front of people.
Not in front of people. We
Yeah.
don't. We're gonna.
Not
we're
in front of guests.
Happy faces.
Yeah.
We don't argue ever. I find Boyhood to be a bit of a gimmick film, and I was like, oh no, this gimmick is going to go across, but now in a trilogy. And I guess just because in the interest of time, I will just say this series I did not feel the same way, and I'm excited to talk about it and why the difference is sort of there.
Okay, so you hadn't seen it before. Jamie, had you seen these before?
No, I had not.
Knew about them?
I knew about the third one. I remembered seeing a trailer for it and thinking that's a little strange. And then looking at, just because it seemed a little like, well, that's just a really basic love story. And then I think I Googled it and was like, oh, it's attached to something. And then I got totally distracted and never looked at it again. So this was a great opportunity.
And how about you guys? Last name basis. I'm just going to refer to you as that.
I knew about the trilogy, but I had never watched any of them. I think I maybe caught like parts of the first one on TBS. I feel like there was one year where it was always on TBS.
Yeah.
And so we just watched them this week.
I'd never heard of these things.
Oh, really?
I didn't know. It was on the strength of your email that I watched
I was like, yes, I'm in.
all of this stuff. That I saw Ethan Hawke's face for 300 and some odd minutes.
Yeah, I hope you didn't like 5 hours, because you just lost them all.
Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
Shivali, the interesting thing is that this would be kind of the films that I would be like talking about probably, because they're
Right.
kind of in my wheelhouse.
Yep.
But I was not. Shivali, you actually saw these before me, right?
Yeah, I did. I knew about them before you.
Yeah, I know. That very rarely happens when it comes to movies. But why? How had you seen these, and what did you think about them when you saw them, or why did you want me to see them?
It's funny, actually. The first time I saw them, it would have been before you.
Oh,
Well,
really?
a couple of them anyway.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's the prequel.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
one of them was before you, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe it didn't hit me then, the significance of it. And I think after you, when I resaw, goodness, it was before Sunset, and then I saw the subsequent two films, they just blew me away.
Okay.
I love them.
So you have the longest history with these films. I saw them. I think I saw them a couple of years ago for the first time, and I kind of had this experience where I thought I kind of wished I'd seen them when I was younger. I wished I'd seen them when I was like 20 years old. I was kind of like,
Yes.
Oh my God,
Ethan-
we just had this conversation.
Right, yeah. Like when you feel like you're kind of having the conversations that these two characters are having.
I mean,
Yep.
I guess we're jumping right in. I don't know if we're gonna be the lone ones at the table, but we did not fucking like these movies.
These were,
Oh,
these
yeah.
were terrible. You know how a moment ago I said
we like hated these
I
movies.
said
Oh,
I said
goodness.
You guys sent us an email. It said, "Are you in?" I didn't even look at what it was. I said, Shahir, Matt, yes, done. Let's do this. The only podcast
he was
about
like, "Fuck
movies."
the movie pod guys."
And 15 minutes into
How dare they?
15 minutes into the first one, I was like, "Oh my God, there are
I hate
three
these
of
fucking
these
guys.
No, but to your point, I felt like watching these films, I realized if I had seen these in my 20s, I think I would have enjoyed them. And I think it is because it does capture what it's like when you first meet someone and you have that like butterfly feeling for them. But I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Pat, for me, it was one of those things where the experience of having that was more enjoyable than watching, for me, somebody else having that experience. Because I was like, man, I'm sure when Pat and I first met, I was equally as pretentious and like googly eyed, but like watching someone else do it, I was just like, girl, please. I was like, okay, I get it, you guys, have sex. I was
that was my point. I was like, this is the sort of thing, these are the conversations you have when you're very young and everything is like very esoteric and you're figuring things out. And I like that. It almost gave me a little bit of nostalgia for that time. But the entire time I was like, if they have sex right now, this movie ends.
Not far off from the first on the first one either.
No.
Not far off.
No.
Okay, but this I want to give us some context to these movies. First off, for our listener Laura, who requested these films.
Yes.
If you want to request films, don't. But you can email us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com.
Right?
What's that?
She's seen them, right?
Yes. she
Okay,
has seen
good.
them.
Just checking.
Yeah,
Yes.
Laura,
this would be a boring podcast if it hadn't
yeah,
seen
you
them.
gotta work.
Laura
for these.
has emailed us, and Laura's
Yes.
emails us in from Australia regularly. She's we love getting Laura's requests. We actually had to cull a couple of her requests because she requested Nightcrawler, I believe.
Yes.
Which we did as
Yep.
well. And she wrote us an email, asking us to do these films, and this is what she wrote about them. She said, "I love how real the trilogy feels. It's simple but effective in its storytelling. I think it'd be interesting to discuss the effect that waiting the actual time between movies has on the process of making them. Do you think it works better here than Boyhood?" She has an answer for that. I'm not going to read out her answer. I'd also like to hear whether you feel the film takes an unbiased perspective on the couple, or if Ethan Hawke's character is the protagonist of the series. And finally, it's such an interesting use of the concept of trilogies. Do you have any other suggestions for unique takes? Can't wait for the episode. We'll probably have to rewatch them in preparation, but I don't know if I'm emotionally ready for them yet.
That's so funny. How long did she wait for the episode?
About 3 years.
Yeah. Well, we're bringing. Look, we keep
should
adding guests per year,
And we should
we've made
re-review
it.
them in 10 years' time.
No, let's not. But the point of this is, thank you, Laura. Yes, as we've mentioned before, our request things are closed until we find a more streamlined way of doing it. But you can write us in with your thoughts about the Before trilogy or anything that's going on right now at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com, or get us on our Facebook or Twitter at onlymoviepod. Housekeeping out of the way.
That's right.
I think.
All right. We've kind of given our general impressions. I want to take us back in time a little bit. 1994. Richard Linklater is a filmmaker who has just made a film called Dazed and Confused, which I'm guessing if you're not a Richard Linklater fan, you may have.
I love that movie.
You've seen Dazed and Confused?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great movie. And he basically gets the opportunity, or he's traveling around the world with this film, and he decides, I want to make a film about an experience that he had in his life. So when he had made his first movie, Slacker, he traveled to a bunch of film festivals, and this is, again, 1990, so you would travel to film festivals in America by train.
Right.
And so he did, and he met, on an overnight layover in Philadelphia, he met a woman in a toy store by the name of Amy. And he basically did what happens in this movie, is he wandered around Philadelphia talking to this woman, Amy, for the entire night. And then they made some attempts to reconnect with each other. It obviously didn't quite work out, and they kind of just fell off, lost touch with each other. But a few years later, he decided to try and capture that moment, or that experience as a film. And this is a slightly unusual experience because he decided to take Ethan Hawke and Julia Delpy to Vienna and not quite improvised. I think there's a sort of misconception about this film being completely improvised. It is tightly scripted, but allow them to kind of contribute to what the story is and contribute to like how the story flows. And then jumping ahead, the movie was a sort of moderate success. It's kind of in that ballpark of films like Reality Bites, which did really well around that period. The talky 90s Gen X kind of movies. But around 10 years later, I mean, as we know, this film ends on a cliffhanger. People would keep asking him, do Jessie and Celine reconnect? And this is an interesting thing, was that he said he'd always hoped that the woman that he met in Philadelphia, Amy, would come to the screening of Before Sunrise, and that would be how they would reconnect.
He wasn't like married at this point, was he?
I-
That'd be rude.
That would just be rude. I'm not too sure about Linklater's personal life. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. Who knows?
Is he now?
He's like 50-something years old.
Okay.
I believe he's married with.
Did
And
they-
he's got a daughter as well who was in Boyhood.
Did they do it in the park?
You would
I
have to ask
mean-
Mr. Linklater.
I just want
Better
it
have.
now.
Yeah.
So an interesting thing happened, which is so obviously they reconnected. They made the movie the Before Sunset 10 years later, which was kind of like the reconciliation of the events that happened.
Sure,
before
Which
Sunrise.
Delphy co-wrote, right?
Yeah, and what happened now is they became fully fledged co-writers on the film. They were nominated for an Oscar for that screenplay, and then they decided this was a thing. 10 years later, they did Before Midnight, which they were also nominated for an Oscar for. An interesting thing that happened was that Linklater later discovered that right before he made Before Sunrise, someone who kind of knew Amy, the original person he met, kind of pieced together that he was talking about her. And wrote him a letter and informed him, unfortunately, that she passed away, like right before he went off to make Before Sunset.
Wow.
Before Sunrise, sorry. The first one.
Yeah.
Before he went off to make she had just passed away. And that's what kind of spurred on the kind of the idea to continue this. This is obviously, again, and we've talked about Linklater a little bit, and you've already, Fran, you already mentioned his obsession with time, a film like Boyhood, which also takes an actor through 10 years of his life. This is also, in that wheelhouse, especially other films like Waking Life as well. So I just wanted to put the historical context into what these films are.
My mind is blown.
Right, by the Amy story?
Yeah, by all of it. But also I feel like it's changing how I feel about the movies a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm still not in love with them, but I think the second one was far superior, and I genuinely now feel like it was probably because of their involvement in the script, because as soon as we started watching the second one, I was like, I like both of their characters more in this one.
Yeah.
And they felt more like fleshed out real people, and I'm now thinking that that's why.
Okay. So
I was just going to make a comment. The story is sweet. The thing we just learned about is 100% lovely. I'm very glad he changed the plot from meeting in a toy store, which is a little bit
creepy.
Why are
She
you
worked at the
20
toy
something?
store.
Okay, why
she
is
worked at the toy store.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I guess that's half as creepy as what I was.
my sister.
Wait, Matt, you seem like the kind of guy that goes into
Well,
toy
yeah,
stores.
I don't go to toy stores.
Exactly.
R.I.P. Toys R Us.
Yeah.
I have to interject. My brother and his now wife met in a toy store.
Whoa!
He worked in the coffee shop across the street, and he would go in
And
trying
she
to
worked
find
there?
reasons to talk to her. And
He went into
it took a summer, but now they're married with 2 kids now, so it worked.
I think far worse though would be having sex in a park in Philly. Right? I mean,
Way more dangerous.
No.
You're going to need more than one bottle of wine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, so and the other thing that I thought was interesting is the reflection of. So the idea is that we've got 3 films that are taking place over 3 very distinct time periods of people's lives: their 20s, their 30s, and kind of in the precipice or just at the beginning of their 40s. And which I would guesstimate the reason we asked you, everyone in the room, kind of reflects where we all are in our relationship, or is a reflection of the people that are in this room. So. Matt, you guys want to explain your relationship just a little bit? I know it's not a relationship session, but I think it'd be interesting just so that people know where we're coming from.
We're dating.
Yeah. We met in a toy store.
I made a film about it.
I mean, Jamie and I are. I guess we're part of this damned. I mean, the millennial-esque sort of meeting type thing where we met literally on Tinder.
It was magical.
It's magic. You tell it. You tell it so much better.
Just like I opened my phone.
Yep.
And this guy, he was there.
This is my
and
favorite
he was
part.
like, I'm from New Hampshire. And I was like, New England? Cool, me too.
And that's it. Because no, there's more to that. I mean, like, it's weird to sort of meet someone and then get so close to someone through that means until it's not.
Well, here's the thing. I've been on some Tinder dates. They're mostly a disaster, or just really boring, or scary. And fortunately, like I met Matt, and I very distinctly remember the date. And as it went on, I was like, oh, he's a real person. I remember thinking, like, he's not, like, this isn't someone that I, like, saw on the app and was like, well, he's cute. Like, he was a real person that I had a real opinion of and a real ability to connect with. We ended up talking for 6 hours.
Our first date was like 6 hours long.
Yeah, it was funny because I told my roommates, like, I'm going out. I'm going to be back in like an hour and a half. This is going to be a quick
Were they worried?
date. They called the bar.
No.
I mean, we had gone to another bar. We were like, well, let's go somewhere else. And they were like, have you seen a girl? She's got short hair. Is she okay?
But you know what?
That's
That's real because
Wow.
even you just said, like, sometimes Tinder can be scary. And like even when I was watching this movie, that was the thing I thought. I was like, girl, you was about to get killed. Like, I know that the movie ends up being a good thing, but I was like, you, like, never
It's true.
would
It
I
was
get
that-
off a
Yeah.
train with
that
some
beautiful.
stranger. I was like, I watched too many episodes of Snapped, Cold Case Files, all of those.
Is that the benchmark though? It's like my Tinder date went so well, my friends thought I was murdered.
I guess.
Apparently, I don't know.
And yeah, and now we've been together almost a year this month, or sort of a little, yeah,
It's like,
2
yeah, it's
weeks
around-
ish,
it's around
technically
here.
till
Oh.
our 1 year almost. We haven't decided when our anniversary will be, everyone. So
Right.
Okay.
if people
Like
want to
when-
vote.
like the-
I'm
on
bad
the
at
swipe
remembering
or the
dates.
first date.
Is it the
so-
swipe? Is it the first date? Is it when we started dating? So we kind of made an amalgamation of sort of the end of this month, early next month, and we'll nail it down.
Okay.
But to Friend's point, I thought that the first movie, and like I'm not going to disagree at all because it's definitely I think it has the least substance. But and I'm someone who like. I like to feel things. And to me, like, I was really invested in the first movie because it's like this rich, it's like eating frosting out of a jar. Like, every moment is like, think about, listeners, think about like the best first or maybe second date that you had. And like, how much you wanted to make out with that person in a quiet place and all of the moments leading up to that. Like, this movie is that feeling. It's just, it completely encapsulates like how you're just like drunk off of the idea of a person. And that, I don't know, to the movie's credit, I'd never seen that in a film. And I liked it. They're 23 in this. It's clear. Like
Yes.
they're
Yes.
pretentious.
It really is.
They talk about like their stances on life, and you're like, all right, okay,
Enough.
You don't,
You haven't experienced
You haven't
the
learned.
world.
You don't know anything. Even like Ethan Hawke's character. Oh, by the way, I know I took notes for every single movie, and every single opening is a catty remark about Ethan Hawke's hair. But Ethan Hawke, like he even admits like he's in Europe traveling around because he got there because his girlfriend was studying abroad and she broke up with him. Like, that's how it starts. It's young people who don't know very much.
It's also 1994.
Yes.
Like well before, like, you know,
Social media.
social media
Yeah.
and like contacting people. Probably before email is like prolific, right? Like 1994.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe in business.
No,
Like,
that's
I-
before
Pretty much,
email.
Yeah.
Before
they're
email,
not. They're
so-
not in business. They're 23. They
Yeah.
don't have anything to do.
They're
I don't know. I
sending-
think I was a freshman in high school in 1994.
Yeah, no, I was
younger. I
I
don't
was
know.
in high school and we didn't have email.
I mean,
Okay.
the test is, when was the last time you got to be somewhere where someone was like, hey, I have a day. Do you have a day to just spend with me?
That's
and you
true.
weren't like, well, I need to check Instagram.
calendar.
Like, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
they have the opportunity to be detached.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, last name basis. Well, how did you guys meet?
So we went to high school together, but we didn't date.
Okay.
We ran into each other at a party at a mutual friend's house. But Patrick was friends with a girl that lived in my neighborhood. Pat is 3 years older than me.
2.
2 years older than me.
Just to be
sorry.
accurate here.
He's 2 years older than me. And he was friends with a girl in my neighborhood that I thought was so cool. And when I was in 8th grade, I went to a party at her house and I had never drank before. I got wasted and I got sick.
Wait, 8th grade is how old? It's
14?
14?
14?
Yeah, yeah.
We
okay.
just did
this-
8th grade last week.
And
Shahir.
I still don't know the math.
14.
Okay.
I got drunk. I got sick. I was really embarrassed because I was trying to be cool. And I remember I was outside getting ready to leave, and Pat was like, "Don't worry, it happens to the best of us." And I was like, "Thanks."
Apparently, according to her, I was like the only person.
Wait, so
that
you're a
was-
15-year-old giving alcohol?
No, he was only he was 15. He was like, "Don't worry, kid, it gets easier."
I don't know if that's exactly
He
what
already
I
had
said.
hair on his chest.
He was
I don't,
sipping a
I don't
whiskey at
think
the
that's
time.
how that went, but she said I was the only
He was
person.
doing the Captain Morgan pose.
I was the only person who was nice to her, and I planted a seed that evening.
Yeah, and
That
then
grew
Is that the
into
euphemism
a
now? I don't know,
beautiful
sorry.
flower garden or whatever.
Listen, and without the gross connotation you just made, planting the seed is no joke when it comes to sort of dating. Like that. There's a lot of, you plant seeds in things, and then eventually grows into sometimes a relationship.
and you
Absolutely.
absolutely. And so
Plus, I was older than her, which made me cool automatically
Yeah.
in high school terms.
Ah.
So
sure,
Yeah, all of us are looking at this going, I don't think that's how it
But
works.
when we
I think it's how it works.
it
we
is.
reconnected, I was still in college, and Pat had just graduated at a friend's party, and I was like, "Do you remember that happening?" And he was like, "No, I don't remember that at all."
Because I was wasted. I was on a rager.
And did
Kidding,
you
of
turn
course.
around and did you say it happens to the best of them?
I was like, keep your chin up, kid.
Standing on a Captain Morgan barrel.
Yeah, so we reconnected and started dating, and we have been married now for almost 5 years, and we've been dating for 13, going on 13 years.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, so we've lived together for a long time. We've lived in different states. We have 2 dogs. So we have
deal.
like all of the serious relationship responsibilities
Yes.
short of having a kid.
Right.
And I don't know. I definitely think that colored, like I said before, my perspective on this film, where I looked at the first one and I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely what it's like when you're a kid.
Yeah.
And then I think that's why maybe I liked the second one more, because I could relate to that age. And I don't know, I felt like Julie's character, she seemed to know herself more and be less of just like a vessel of like, like, oh, I'm so young and cute. Like,
Yeah, they were definitely children in the first one, and I really, it did make me nostalgic. Like I said before, it really made me think like, wow, I used to have conversations like that, and with like anybody who would have them with me.
Oh, we used to talk on the phone. Oh, I just remember us talking on the phone for like 6 and 7 hours, and me having to go to class the next morning and thinking, oh my God, babe, it's like 5 a.m. and I have to get up for class in 2 hours. And Patrick would just be like, no, it's okay, we can keep going. And we would just like be just talking about nothing. But like, trying to impress the other person and
I
trying
just graduated
to be funny.
college. I didn't have a job, so there's that.
You had nothing
I was
to
like,
do.
I can talk all
This
night.
is great.
Well, he got fired because like after the
he stayed
first
up all night talking?
Yeah, well, because one night, like he came to my New Year's party, and it was one of those things where he was like, God, I'm supposed to work tomorrow, but I'm probably just not going to make it. And they said, if you don't come in, you're going to be fired. And then
Wow.
he got fired. So
To be fair, I didn't ever go back to find out if I was fired.
You
I
just decided he
I
was
just took them at
fired.
their word.
You could still technically work there right now.
I'm probably still on the payroll.
Manager.
you're probably
promoted.
Anytime a table like gets dropped, everyone's like, oh, that was Patrick's table.
table.
Like,
I was a waiter.
yeah.
So, but I guess for both of you guys, everyone in the room, basically, did the conversations in the film kind of mirror those first conversations that you had with your respective other?
No.
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 Okay.
No.
I'd say
But-
probably not.
I will say, and we'll sort of circle back to everything, but it did a good job giving you the feeling of the type of conversations that, for instance, that Jamie and I had, or the feeling that I was having while having conversation. It didn't feel like the same because obviously Jamie and I weren't 23. Nobody likes you when you're 23. That's a song that the kids used to listen to.
Actually, I have to tell you something.
Oh no!
I'm 31. It's okay.
But it's like, but it did a great job. It did a great job as sort of giving that sort of emotional through line and making you feel like that. Now, actually, to Fran's point, I kind of tiptoed back and forth between really enjoying the first one and kind of rolling my eyes at the first one because I think because it was very like, you want to talk about reincarnation? It's like the things in these films, and they got gradually less and less. And I think it actually is a young person to just aging, is when you're kind of stuck and you don't know, you're excited to talk to a person, you don't quite know what you want to say. You just have no transitional ability. Like, you have the transitional ability that I used when I turned the astronaut thing back to this film. Just horrible transitional ability. So you wait for those like 7 seconds of natural silence, and then you're like, I'm thinking about converting to Islam, and then it's like, oh, like what? But you didn't talk about anything like that beforehand.
They're also just trying so hard to impress each other.
Yes.
Right.
They're like, one time I read a study that talked about how this thing and that thing, and I also think that my perspective has been it's just like, shut
You've
up.
listened to this podcast, right?
I know, but here's the thing. There's some, but again, this is what I mean. That is really fun to have. For me, it's not fun to watch someone else
Right.
have it.
Okay.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I was just like, okay, now I'm watching two people flirt with each other for a really long time, and I wanted something more to happen.
The big
Yeah, it was literally just that.
takeaway was like, you should go out and have these conversations if this appeals to you.
Right.
That's how I felt. I was like, oh, I kind of wish I was a kid again, having these conversations, at least for a little while. And then I was like, I don't want to watch this. It's 10 minutes in. And
I
I'm dying.
pinged on it like a heart monitor. Like I was like, oh, this is cool, and oh, they broke it, and oh, this is great, and I feel it, and oh, they broke it. We've gone through the two of our sort of the 4 quad relationship, 2 1 whatever. I don't know how you position that. Shahir and Shivali.
Do you want to explain the story of how we met?
I think you should do it. You do a much better job.
Yeah, you kind of made a movie.
We have made a film about how we met. No, we made a film about how we met. But okay. So the context is
It's
that we are
called the Four Sunrise.
yeah, we are the ghost
It's called
writers.
How Shivali and Shahir met.
Yeah. But for context in the room, I think we're the oldest people in the room, right? I
Yes,
think so.
I expect so.
We have a child. We've
do.
been married for 13 years.
We have.
And we've been together for how long?
15 years.
15 years. She remembers this much better than I do. But we just had the 13th anniversary, which I forgot about.
Way to go.
Yeah, way to go. Congratulations to me. But how... we have made a film about this, but the thing that I think is really interesting about the entire trilogy is the way... The first film is a moment, and then the second film is a reflection on that moment. It's like, well, what did that mean? How did this actually work? And the third film is basically examining the repercussions now that this couple have been together for so long.
Yeah.
So I've told our story on film. I've told our story, a lot of times. I'm curious what your impression. So, if to save you, the backstory is that we met in college, kind of. We were both. You were teaching. I was teaching. Is that right?
I think I was doing my PhD at the time.
And I was teaching, and so we would cross paths a lot, and then
we noticed each other.
Yeah.
He remembered me as the girl in the red hoodie.
That's right. I remember you, the girl in the red hoodie.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I remembered him as the tall Indian.
That's
The tallest Indian I've ever seen in Wellington. I need to meet this guy.
Trust me, if you've met me long enough, that's all I got going for me. But so I guess the interesting thing as well is to also put it in context. We have been dating since before people owned smartphones. So I guess our experience maybe you guys as well.
Yeah, I mean smartphones. The iPhone came out while we were dating,
Right.
But I was always a technology girl, so I always had
Right.
a phone or whatever thing that did the cool gadget stuff. So.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess what I mean by that is that our courtship kind of felt like this, where we were walking and talking, but there was also kind of a sort of an air of, I will say it, an air of magic to the way we met. Do you want to?
He's going to call it magical, then toss to you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just try and set the scene then. So it was, 1 a.m., 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
We met in a bar.
Magical bar.
I think I'd left my handbag or a phone or a card, so I'd just gone with my buddy Richard. At the time, I was an instructor, a fitness instructor, which cracks me up now because I'm not that person anymore. But anyway, we'd gone in there. I was with my buddy, and Shahir was actually about to leave for the US. We'd never met before. And he'd been talking to his friend about, I've just been thinking about this girl I always see around Wellington. I've never had the guts to see her. You know what? I forgot the time we walked past each other.
Okay. So
Rewind.
So a little rewind here is that we used to cross paths, and I remember remarking to a friend, I was about to leave the country, and there was only one girl I kind of liked, and I'd never met her. I had no connection to her. I didn't have any sort of way to talk to her. So I said, okay, the next time I see her, I'm gonna say something. And then you realize when you have to walk up to a complete stranger and say something, it's the most awkward thing in the world. It sounds romantic, but it's kind of creepy.
Sure.
And so we were walking towards each other, and I was pumped. I was ready.
I smiled.
And that just threw me. And I just kept walking because that threw that.
He looked down.
Did he put his hand above his eyebrows and
I was
just sort
she
of?
sees me. Oh no! Keep
Well,
walking.
there's nothing worse than over planning for a moment and then it never happens the way that you want it to, and then.
But then subsequently, so this is where you come back.
So Shahir saw me walking into a bar. He was with his buddy. He was about to leave for the US in a couple of weeks. He said, "Oh my God, there's that girl. We have to go in."
And
So he came in and he's trying to build up the courage to come talk to me, and he didn't need to
Because
Oh my
because
God.
I'm a brave, confident woman.
and also you'd had a few drinks.
Just one or
It helps.
two.
It helps. It helps the confidence, bravery.
So I walked up to Shahir. I slid my phone. It wasn't a smartphone. It was one of the, the ones.
The Nokia.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I slid it across and said, probably not the best time for us to have a conversation, but I really want to get to know you. Give me your
So
number.
she kind of did the thing that I thought I was going to do, and I think, yeah, so if you've seen the movie Swingers as well, like there's that conversation you have after someone gives you their phone number. It's like, oh, when do I call back? Is it 2 days? Is it 3 days? Is it when do you do it? And she called, and I was having a conversation with my buddy, doing that thing, and she called back like then. So it was like she called back within 10 minutes, and then we spent the night doing
Talking.
the before sunrise kind of conversation.
But over the phone.
No, in person.
Oh, you just
Yeah.
decided to meet up right after.
Yeah,
we
I
just
get-
talked and talked.
and we walk. And I think
We didn't have those kind of conversations. I can tell you that right now.
Right, no,
we
we
never
didn't.
have those conversations.
I don't know. I could picture if it's the conversations that even Shahir and I get into about just random nonsense bullshit.
But just
but
picture-
younger Shahir,
Oh my god!
like, oh my God.
Take the obnoxious level and dial it up by like 5
Well,
at a minimum. But so I guess to that point. In terms of these movies, we've been through. What I think is interesting is that Matt and Jamie, you kind of responded, I'm guessing, strongest. Matt, you're sort of 50-50 on the first movie.
no.
Oh, no? Okay.
We just
You're putting
early
you're
in
I'm putting words in your mouth? Okay.
that might be what you think we were.
Okay. Patrick and Fran, you kind of responded to the second movie?
I would say if I had to pick the movie that I liked the most out of them, I would say there were more elements of the second movie that I liked.
Okay.
But overall, I was kind of like,
Yeah.
So my grand mathematic plan that I've been like drawing on a whiteboard for the last week doesn't quite plan.
No, your
But-
serial killer map will not
well,
work here.
so then which one did you guys relate to the most or connect with the most, I guess?
Do you want to go first?
You go first. No, I'll go first.
Okay, go first.
I think the last one.
Yeah, the third one. Well, to be fair, for me, I love the entire trilogy. I think
me
the
too as well.
I love all of these movies pretty equally, and I think the reason for me it's hard to separate them as 3 movies now. I kind of see it as like 3 points in a story
Right.
that is ongoing.
I love the car ride in the third one.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
I just
Oh,
think
yeah,
the,
you
were
the writing.
incredible.
I just like
With
the writing was so much better in 2 and 3, and like that's what I mean in the sense that my perspective, just you telling me that the actors were involved in the writing process, made me think like, oh, okay, that's why those conversations felt more realistic. Like them lying to their kids about not going to the
ruins.
ruins.
That was such a good moment.
That was
Yeah.
such a
I
good
felt like
moment.
that was one of the most real moments in
And
all
them
3
making
films.
fun with like them being playful with each other, like that definitely reminded me of me and Pat's relationship, because even though we did talk a lot early in our relationship has always been about like being funny and poking fun at each other and like taking the piss out of each other. And when you see a couple do that, for me, I'm like, oh, that couple really loves each other, because that takes a level of trust to know that the other person's not going to hit below the belt. But they also know you enough to know how to push your buttons and make a joke at your expense that you're going to be like, all right, you got me. Like, that was good.
Yeah.
Like,
I also think the stakes in the third film are much higher than the first and the second
Yes.
film.
Oh, they've been built up.
Yeah, it's entirely they have children now. The stakes are like it's not just a case of like we're going to separate.
they're
for a little.
full-fledged people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's there's much more around them. It's also the first film where they're talking to other people.
Yes.
Like we don't see that in the
Yes.
first and second film.
Yeah.
We were so happy.
Yeah. We're like, oh, a new person? And then they kind of blew it.
What do you mean in the
Because all they
first?
did was talk about blowjobs.
In the first,
Wait,
in
what?
the first film, on the third film,
Oh,
that's
the
all.
third
right.
one, it
yeah.
was
But in the
really
first film, they
sexualized.
talked to people. They talked to those random cow people that were doing
Oh,
the
and
play.
then the
Why
weird
was
guy
why
writing
is
the poem.
every
Everyone
person
was so
in Vienna
weird.
a mystic gypsy.
Yeah,
Yes.
Why? Every
everyone.
single person was like, "I'll tell you a fortune. I write you a poem that tells you a fortune." Like every single person.
I kept
Every-
thinking they were going to get mugged. I was like, oh my God,
you
run
wanna buy
away.
some lottery tickets? Like there was nobody like
Every
that.
time, Jamie's like, "All right, who in the scene is going to be the mystic gypsy?" Like, and it would always happen. And we're like, "Well, all right."
I think your own experiences really cloud how you see things, right? So
Yeah.
I've been to Vienna and I went by myself. I was out there for a conference, but I went to the museum at the time and they're displaying a painting, The Kiss by Gustav Klimt. And I'm not an art kind of person, but I told you about this. I stood in front of this painting and I cried. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And so for me, Vienna is just romance, love, beauty. And that's how I kind of viewed.
It's definitely a love letter to Vienna in that way because even at the end of the film when they show you like all of the locations that they were at, I was like, oh, okay, like that's cute. Like I got that. But again, if I had experienced it, I think that I would have been like, wow. And instead I was like, I'm watching a movie about a place that I haven't been to, that I know is scenic and beautiful, but it's also being captured in 1994.
To its credit, though, too, and especially from the point of view of people as young as they are, that's kind of what traveling in that capacity is like. Being approached, the people who approach you are all people who like want to give you something for a little bit of money.
Yeah.
You know, so like it's kind of true to that experience in its own way.
And that end scene where they show everywhere that they've been, but they're, you know, it's like the next day and they're not there. I actually really enjoyed that, not because it was specific to Vienna, but because it was like an alley with some milk crates in it. Like it was stuff that was significant to them, but
then not significant to anyone else.
They were. It was like the most important place in the world, but then like as the sun rises, they're not there. It's some milk crates and there's like a stray cat next to it. Like it's not a big deal.
I mean, it's just like they're so. I like that concept, and when I saw that in the film, I just started thinking about, because we're all New Yorkers, that like all of the places that we sort of think of, or like that we pass on a daily basis, at some point, someone's had that moment that these characters were at, and this is me getting a little too romantical for my own good, but like someone's had that moment at these random ass bullshit places that we walk by every day. Just
people
like
have fucked all over New York.
Exactly.
Every spot you've been at.
But I'm
just saying you should have picked your chairs correctly in this room.
But listen, but the point being, that is 100% true. People have fucked everywhere. But in addition to just straight fucking, people have
made love.
People have made love.
But they've also had romantic.
Somebody held some hands.
Babies have been born.
Yeah. So
well, maybe conceived rather than born. I don't know about
but it just I liked the idea of thinking about like mundane places meaning something specifically important to individuals whom are not me.
Yes.
And that is something that this film, I think I didn't actually have a fully grasped like I like or don't like this film until sort of that moment and the end of the film. And I remember once I was sort of doing the roller coaster thing like I talked about before, and then at the end I liked it. But then I wondered,
did you just like it because it was over?
Nice.
That's why we liked it. We were like,
Linklater. No. Did I just like it because I knew that the story was going to continue? Like, I'm very curious if because I'm not a fan of weird, not weird or nonsensical, those are both the wrong words, of endings that are not endings. And this is a thing where it's like, when it sort of leaves you guessing, like, I was pumped because I was like, I can't wait to see like if they actually did this or not.
Yeah, we knew there was another movie.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
And Jamie did something.
Known that.
So how would you? So that makes me wonder, how would I have felt if I had seen the movie in 1994
Yes.
when there was no
Exactly.
trilogy.
And Jamie did something incredibly interesting, and I think kind of detrimental to her mother about these films. So we had the idea. Jamie was like, "Oh my God! Like, what if you watch these films in reverse?"
I don't think it's detrimental. I think it's probably the same experience. But I was
So
like,
you did. You told your mom to watch them reverse.
Yeah, because my mom was like, "Oh, this sounds like interesting." She hadn't heard of them, and she kind of wanted to see them. She likes Ethan Hawke.
Yeah.
So I told her to watch them in reverse, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm game." So I don't know. We'll see how that goes.
We're gonna see how it goes. I was hoping she'd finish them before this podcast.
I think it'd be fine. I think I'm gonna call my mom and be like, "What did you learn?" She's gonna be like, same stuff.
There's one thing I want to talk about with respect to something that Ethan Hawke says in the very first film, and it's echoed in the third film, and that is this idea that I'm a time traveler from the future, right? Like he says this is his like game plan to like get her off the train, is like, I'm a time traveler from the future and I'm here to remind you or to inform you that the person that you're married to 20 years from now is actually an okay dude because the guy you got off the train with wasn't that great. And now,
And he's obsessed with writing about that concept.
he's obsessed
too.
with writing about time as well. And then what happens is, so I think my experience is slightly different, which is that I've seen the trilogy like 3 times now. And every time I watch it, it's a different experience because I watch it as a time capsule. So when I watch it now, and I don't know, because you watched it, Shivali watched it a couple of times as well, is that first film kind of transcends into something beyond like just this meet cute. It has this kind of mythic quality to it because it's the starting point for this greater story that continues. And then those moments where we see the empty space left behind are kind of like remnants of that time. And it's something that gets echoed in all 3 films. It's something that Ethan Hawke his character talks about a lot. His book is called This Time, That Time. The poems that he recites are about the passage of time. Everything that he kind of deals with in this film has to do with the idea that time is marching forward. But it's not evaporating. It's not like they're rushing against time or anything like that. What's sort of happening as this becomes a series is that the whole series becomes a time capsule. It like reminds you of these 3 periods of time, and they're all different, and they all change every time you watch them. And what I find is sort of interesting is that like when he says I'm a time traveler, I kind of watch and go, that's kind of like my experience of watching this movie. I'm traveling back in time to watch that moment when you first connected, and I know what happens later on. And so that's this idea that's again echoed in Boyhood. Like it's that notion of seeing time pass very slowly and seeing like the evolutionary changes. And I think it's something that really is beautiful in this film. It's something that really touched me this time around.
Here's the thing: it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful in these films. Sorry, I the only thing I will say is in Boyhood, it was not. I did not find it beautiful whatsoever. It was.
I 100% agree with that, by the way.
Okay, it was just because this, and I think, and I don't know if I had seen that first film and not known that there were other 2, or like, so if seen it in a weird order or anything, I don't know if that would be the case. But the magic that I think that this film has in spots, or this trilogy has, I think is completely that specific time magic, temporal magic is lost in Boyhood for me. Sorry, Patrick, I kind of half cut you off.
No. I lost my train of thought.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But I'm sure it was some sort of negative thing. That's all I can tell you for sure.
Because I'm so, and this is going to be the weirdest sentence I've said in a long time. I'm so happy that both of you didn't like these films.
We were saying the same thing. We were like, I feel like we're going to be the ones that don't like it.
Yeah.
I will say this. And not from a skill craft perspective of filmmaking, but I didn't particularly like the third one.
The third one was terrible. I was waiting for us to get there. It was bad, but the worst part about the third one was this. They reduced her,
her character became so awful.
She became
That's
this
true.
really well-rounded, really strong person in the second one.
Yes.
She became a harpy bitch in the third one.
And then in the third one, she became completely two-dimensional. She created all of the conflict herself, but you couldn't really get a read on where it was actually coming from. It just was coming out of nowhere. And then this is the worst part. At the very end, when he does the whole "I'm a time traveler" thing, and she has literally 10 minutes prior said, "I don't love you anymore," and that's it. And then he does his little bit, and she goes,
"Okay,
yeah, all right, that's cool." And it like reduces that whole thing to like a child's fit almost.
I didn't dislike the third movie. It was I agree. Like it was frustrating to watch because you're like the car scene happens and you're like, I want to have dinner with this couple, and then you're in the hotel room with them and you're like, I want to get out of the hotel.
yeah.
But then
that
last 2 minutes, it started and I was like, okay, I can see where this is going. I like it. And then the last thing that happens, I was like, fuck you! Like,
it
was like she gave up.
Movie for me.
I also just felt like her character. I don't know. And again, it's so interesting to me that to know that she was part of the writing process for the third one, because I saw that
second and third.
The second and third. Yeah. But I saw her character and I instantly was like, ugh, some dude wrote this. She's like starting arguments with him. She's like planting the seed that they're gonna break up. And then like suddenly she gotta take her titties out. I was just like, who is this for? What is going on? Like she's not a real person. She's just being so naggy and awful.
The booth thing was pretty extremely intimate, but that was both of them. I was like, Ethan Hawke, stop it!
Yeah, but
Get
again,
that tit out of your mouth.
I was
Ethan.
also like, who is this for? I was like, who is this for? What is happening? And then I just thought she was so she just was so nasty, and they framed him as kind of like, God, this is so unfair how she's treating him. And
But that brings it to the question that the viewer said of, is Ethan Hawke the protagonist in the story?
That's the question I kind of want to raise now. is how
and
you
did
guys-
he cheat on her? Because he
I
didn't
know,
actually
'cause they
say.
talked
Or did they both cheat at some
each
point?
other.
Or
Wait, I do want to say, like, yes, she was really antagonistic in the entirety of the third movie. But it's built off of a place where she's insecure about him wanting her to change her life. She constantly is like, you want me to move to Chicago? And he's like, I don't think we should talk about that. Stop it. I never said that. It happens multiple times. And then in the last scene, he's like, but like, would you move to Chicago though?
No.
And then like, she keeps saying like, I think that you ruined your life to be with me. And that's horrifying. And then there's that moment where, can we go into spoilers?
I mean, we kind of did.
We've spoiled everything.
Yeah.
I don't think you can spoil
It's
these
justified.
movies.
Yes,
A lot of talking.
I want to
she's
get back to that.
super harsh the whole movie, I agree. But she's harsh coming from a place of insecurity. And then she, like, offhandedly is like, I used to sing. I used to be creative. What happened to that? I missed that. And he says that line where he's like, I love the way you sing. I wish you'd sing more.
He was like, and if you weren't
fucked
like,
up-
Well, why don't you
he
actually look
he
after our child?
He says, I fucked up my life because of the way you sing. And it validates everything that
But
she's
then he
upset
also
about.
goes, maybe if you didn't spend so much time bitching, you could be like a fucking concerto, guitar player. And I was just like, you are a dick.
The
Like,
whole
yeah,
thing
he
is
was
tough.
pretty
There's
nasty
a lot
too.
of tough stuff.
yeah, he was.
So-
I feel like he was like a jerk the whole.
I feel like we have a
series.
different opinion about this whole thing, right?
I don't know if it's a different opinion, but maybe just yeah. So I guess my view on it was that she was coming from a place of working and looking after the twins.
Yes,
That's all she does. And quite frankly,
Yeah.
I can relate.
Yeah. And
I mean, that's what I do.
That's the thing when I was watching it as well. Is I didn't think she was two-dimensional. I didn't think that she was unrounded. I thought she was. I think like this question mark that the film sets up at the very beginning of the film is. Jesse is afraid that he's missed the opportunity to spend time with his son Hank, and
Who names their
But
kid
yeah,
Hank?
no, honestly, Hank,
grown-up name.
and then
a great point.
but
kid's fucked for life.
But Celine is kind of like in the position now where she's like, well, but what about my twins and my life? Like, am I going to have to give that up? And I think she's really perceptive about what he's saying, which is that he wants her to make the sacrifice to move to Chicago. And then the film is this like really strong push-pull between the two of them where they both talk about the sacrifice. And I think what I love about that is that reflects what it's like to be married.
Yes.
Like everything, no one is right and everyone is wrong. All the time. That's the way I feel like when we get into well, no, Shivali, like, you're always right, and I'm always wrong. but like I found that last hotel scene. I think I think it's one of the most extraordinary pieces of filmmaking I've ever seen. It is incredibly tightly constructed. That whole sequence is one of the most masterful, long, extended conversation scenes I've ever seen anyone make. I think it's written so well. It's filmed beautifully. It's tightly edited. Every moment in that sequence matters, and not a moment is wasted in that sequence. And so when we get to the end, and it's basically these two destroyed people. These two people who have like almost, when she walks out the room and says, "I don't love you anymore," I believe her. I believe that's what she's saying. It's these two people that kind of have not a lot left. And what I love about that final sequence is that's maybe I'm speaking for what it's like to be married, but a lot of times we have arguments that are like end of the world arguments, and then you go back and you're like, so what are we having for dinner tonight? Or what are we gonna do later on? Like you have these arguments that are like the worst things in the world, and then you walk back to them, and we don't. And what I love about like kind of the ending of this film is we don't know if they're actually gonna if this is actually just the last night before they break up, or if it's actually gonna continue. They're gonna come back in 10 years. We don't know any of that.
I think the reason
They'll be back.
I think the reason that I see that so differently is that she planted that seed in the car ride. She was like, "This is it. This is how couples break up." And for me, that's why that all couples fight, and
Right.
all couples have times where you're like, oh man, this is a huge blowout, and we both scream and we both slam doors and we both storm off and we have to cool off, and then we come back and we're like, hey, I'm really sorry, whatever. And that's just part of the process, and that's part of having a successful relationship, is knowing that you're going to fight and that sometimes you have to give in and you have to compromise. But she started it before they even got to the hotel. And so to me, that kind of made her, the whole time we were like, why is she being like, the whole time they're at dinner, or they're at, having dinner with their friends, she's just kind of like being like, me to him. And I'm like, why is she doing that? Why?
So I have a theory. And basically it is something this film. I'm going to praise it and then I'm going to tear it down. Something I think this film does incredibly well is, because we're familiar with the two characters beforehand, we kind of know how they got to where they are in the third film. When they're in the car ride scene passing, side note, is that the Minotaur's maze, by the way, the ruins that they're passing in Greece?
I'm not
No
sure.
idea.
Oh, I thought it was, and I thought that was a bit of a sort of metaphor of the entire thing about
and
being
one of
lost.
the characters' names is Ariadne, who is the builder of the
Maze and the thing. I don't know. There could be some connection there, but we didn't pay close enough attention to know.
It's also a thing in Inception. By the way.
Whoa.
I'm just not that knowledgeable. It was all lost on me.
But so in that conversation, when he brings up something and she instantly goes to, I'm not moving to Chicago. Now that, to me, I was able, because of the first two films and the craft of what they did, able to buy into the fact, because I think in every relationship, I think the three relationships in this room, and a lot of the people that are listening's relationships in general, that conversation or argument that you go back to all the time, that the trips and the traps that the other person maybe even subconsciously sets to get you into the conversation to do something that you don't want to do. And that, to me, in that moment, felt like she just saw the warning. Like, because of the previous films, I was able to believe that she saw a warning sign even beyond what I saw.
Yeah.
And so, sorry, what were you saying?
No, I was going to essentially agree. She's antagonistic, really, and narratively, no, but she's someone who, she's in her head all the time. She's anxious. I related to her as a person a lot, because she's always kind of like looking for the next thing that's maybe wrong or what's going on that's different. And so her picking up on the Chicago thing wasn't her just being like, I'm going to be a bitch right now. That was her being like, I can read you and you want me to move to Chicago.
But the only reason that worked for me is because I knew there were sort of interaction, relationship, and I've seen the history beforehand. Like, this is a case, weirdly enough, let's bring it back to the MCU, where that, like, because of the interconnectivity of the films, much like the Marvel Cinematic Universe in certain places, it worked for me because I had previous knowledge about a thing. Like, that particular emotional moment would not have worked. Or I'm sorry, maybe not even knowledge, investment.
Yeah,
I had investment in the relationship.
I think that is a much better way of putting it, because I think these films have that effect that some films have, which is, now you've been watching it for 4+ hours.
Yeah.
So you were going to read in things that might not actually be there. I feel like at some point it begins like relying on its audience to say, hey, this is a couple. I know what it's like to be a couple. And so I'll just read in the things that just aren't there in this film. I felt like I was doing that at times, and I was like, do I like that? Is that actually there, or did I just put that in there because now I've stared at Ethan Hawke for 4 hours?
Now, that's the question, though.
By the way, I don't think you meant to watch them back to back. Like, they don't need to be watched.
I mean, that's what we
Never
did.
looked at Ethan Hawke's face for so
It's like the sun, it will blind you with its glory.
And I will like to circle back to talk about what films they looked the best in.
Okay.
Because that's important.
We have thoughts about that.
All right. Well, sorry. Well, I'll close that up because I'm actually very curious which films you actually thought they looked best
I
in.
also want to talk about
I'm
that.
curious because again, for that third film, I think I agree with you, Jamie, and I think Shivali, you're kind of on this point as well, which is that the seed has already been planted for this conversation about Chicago. And she is basically, she picks up on the way he's feeling. And what I love as well about the film, and I cried during the first 5 minutes of this movie because of the scene where he's leaving, Hank is going to the airport. And maybe it's because I'm a parent or what have you, but like the thing going through my head was, imagine if, our son, if I only got to see him in summer. you know. And then he says that line to him. He says it was the best summer of my life, and it's heartbreaking. I honestly that moment was just
I
devastating.
will
for
say
me.
I felt for him, and I also felt for him because she has such a great like the kid is calling her.
Yeah.
And, like that was
Yes,
and that
yeah.
was also shitty of her. Like she's like on the phone with him and like not letting
Right,
him,
but
you know.
what I love there as well is that he has got this perception of how his son, you know, it's the best summer of his son, and then his son basically said, Celine says, "Oh, he met a girl during the summer," so it's got nothing to do
It
with
was his
him.
first
But he
kiss,
also
right?
didn't know about it.
He didn't know-
She knew about
because
it.
Yeah.
she has a different relationship with him, and she
Right.
has a strong, you know, like so he's feeling like he's missed out, and she knows it. She can pick up on it, and she knows that this means that I will have to sacrifice my life. And then the dynamic here as well is that he is an artist that lives at home, that writes these books, that basically gets to indulge in like art and talk about
And also
time.
tell all
She's
their business.
not
Yeah.
comfortable with that.
Oh,
And
She
no.
hates that
Yeah.
he talks about their sex
Yeah.
and like all the
Yeah.
intimate details of her in the
So
book.
When they're at the hotel
Yep.
and the lady that was
Ask him to
also
sign.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh, she just happened to have the copies of the books.
Right.
Great. So she pulls the books out and then like makes her sign. I felt so
yeah,
bad for
that
her.
sucks.
I
That
want
was
to.
a pretty good scene.
I want to
Yeah.
say this. I want to say this, and I will phrase this in the form of a compliment to the film, but I will also sort of backtrack against it. I cannot stand films, stories, etc. about writers. I
It's so
can't.
tropey.
I can't stand it because the writers are writing how important writing is, and I want to just strangle myself.
And they're just
but,
so successful and they've made so much
and
money.
everybody happens to know the person with like I you know what the author looks like in an obscure hotel in Greece.
And they have both copies of
They
their
have both
books.
copies.
They brought them to
just
work
on,
with
at
them.
work. Happens to be there now.
He's
now,
the
but
Dan Brown.
but
of
yeah,
romance
yeah, yeah.
fiction.
But I can't tell you what Dan Brown looks like.
Oh, I can.
No, but
can I
but
side
she's
story
checking
real
into a
quick?
hotel. Like you know the name.
It
right?
doesn't matter, but you don't happen to just have the
You don't
books
have the
with
books
you.
with
She
you.
likes the book. She says it. I
She
love
cut-
these
she
books.
She's
brought
like,
both
like Harry
books.
Potter
But she's already
obsessed
read
with
them.
those
She brought
books.
both books
Wait,
to
you
work.
guys have never been to a book signing where someone's turned
Not
up?
a
they were in
book
a hotel.
signing.
You haven't
This is
hotel.
the
Yeah,
I
hotel.
know. I know, but like, if you knew that you're an author you liked was staying at the hotel that you
You're
worked
just
at,
going through the registry waiting to see what authors are coming
It
in.
was
And
a
like, you want to bring that
little-
book?
it was-
Anyway,
it was
my point is, this is, I'm going to bring it back to a compliment about the film. I didn't think about that in the moment until like I was actually reflecting on and moving past it because the emotional weight of what Celine was going through, and it was very clear that she wanted nothing to do with
And that lady was a creep.
Yeah.
Her eyes were all big. She was like, hi, I'm so happy to meet you.
And it all-
Me and my husband love you. I was like, oh my God, you guys are going to get like roped into like a swingers party or something. Like,
Yeah. But
what
she
it
is
does-
trying to
That
get
was
with
the
you.
next question.
it also reflects that thing that Celine is. I don't think she's insecure about. She's angry about. You know, like she
Yes.
brings it up a couple of times. Is like, you know, what you want is an adoring fan. And what you think, and she even at the table, she kind of like pretends that she is this sort of
The bimbo
airheadish,
character,
you know, like a writer fan kind of thing. And then, and then we have this moment with the book, and then later we discover that this is a long festering thing because she believes that he had an affair with someone
With a
that was
fan.
with a fan.
Emily
So-
from the bookstore.
Emily from the
Emily
bookstore.
from the goddamn bookstore.
Well, and what do we think? Do we think that
Oh,
he did?
I think he totally did.
Oh, of course he
he,
did.
he didn't, because he didn't deny it.
No, he didn't
Yeah.
Of course he did.
Yeah,
Wait, I kind of thought he didn't.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
Take this out.
Yeah.
Patrick, let's go into this.
Am
Why
I
do you
the
think he
only guy
didn't?
here who
Yeah.
would just I would suspect that he would not have done that. I think he really was honestly trying not to give in to that argument. I think he thought that it was her being
Insecure.
more insecure, and he was saying like, we're not going to go down this road. I don't think it's worth it. We
No.
should be able to resolve
Then
this.
he turned around and said that she gave some dude a blowjob.
That's
which
true.
which again is deflecting of like, well, you did something. Like, no,
Yeah, no, at that
made,
point
that
I was
made
wondering,
me think
but
that he did it.
I got the impression
I did
that
love
he
the line that like, I know how
probably
your
did.
French ass works.
that was funny. But it was also a matter of like, hey, you looked the other way because I like slept with this chick. I looked the other way because I know you hooked up with this guy, and she didn't deny it.
No, neither of them denied
Neither
it.
of them
No,
denied it. So that made me think like, okay, maybe.
It's so strange because I found her far more insecure and skittish in the second film. Like I found like that whole thing where she was talking about how we didn't have sex, and then she reveals, of course we had sex. I knew that. I was just testing you. And then she talks about how that night changed her outlook on what relationships are supposed to be like.
Skittish.
I found her much more not. Insecure feels like it's derogatory to her, but it's not. It's kind of part of where she is in her life at that moment.
She felt more, but that to me felt more real and vulnerable because she talked about how that night changed her and made it hard for her to like be vulnerable and fall in love and like open herself up to people because she had this thing and then he got to turn it into.
Well, see, I guess maybe that's the difference, is that I found that to be more abstract than the things that they're arguing about in the third film. The things that they're arguing about in the third film are much more concrete. They're like, I am pissed off because you want to move to Chicago, which means we're going to have to up in my life, our life. We've got twins, and I don't want to be by Hank's mother. It's very concrete. Whereas in the second film, I love the second film. I think that I adore the ending of the second film is so beautiful.
Second film might be my favorite.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous movie.
It's definitely the best of the three. And here's why. It's much better than the first one because by virtue of having the first one, the second one can actually have a plot.
But that kind of goes back to what you were talking about before, where you are projecting or you have an investment in these characters because of the first one.
Yes and no. It's not just the investment. I think it's the fact that there is a story, but an actual story.
Yeah.
Movie.
But that second film is... what I love about the second film is that it is like a memory. It's like dealing with a memory. They're basically having to like relitigate what happened in the first movie, and they're not arguing about facts. They're arguing about like what it meant.
Yeah. Oh my God! By the end of the second one, I was like, if I hear someone say that night again, I'm going to lose it.
I will say, I thought it was really funny that he named the book this and that, and then he makes the joke of this brought us together, that paid for the house.
Right.
I was like, okay, he got jokes.
Yeah.
I thought that was really clever.
As the person who feels when they watch movies,
We're all sociopaths.
None of us do else
I'm
feel
willing-
things.
Here's the difference: is I'm willing to disregard all facts and taste if I get a feeling. You're right. The chemistry of the second movie is what you feel when you haven't seen someone in a long time and you've missed them, and you are just kind of like you hit that energy of wanting to reconnect with someone, and I think the viewer kind of rides off of that in it.
Especially viewers who've watched the first movie and had asked that question. So, and again, additional context to that as well is that it wasn't his most successful movie by any means. I think it cost $2 million.
Oh God, how could that be successful?
That's what I'm saying.
People walking around a fucking park talking for a really long time.
But you know what I love about
if you're
that?
invested, but we watched it within a week, so of course we were invested. The other people had to wait 8 years.
10
8
years, yeah.
years.
Well, that's like a syndicated
theater
series.
And I just watched that movie independently, I would have been pissed.
So what I love about that as well is that they, again, these aren't movies that are like super successful, but they're going back because they want to explore what is happening with these two characters. It's never a case of like, oh, we want to like make some more money or anything, because they're not making money on these movies. Like each of these movies cost $3 million. Most of the first one made $5 million, the second two made $11 million. So it's not like a huge wash, of money on these. These made.
I could use like $9 million.
The first two movies cost $3 million to make.
But all three of them will cost $3 million.
But they
very
killed in
unaware.
merchandising.
They
The
did.
little Ethan Hawke dolls. Everybody, you gotta
You
get
get an
one.
Ethan Hawke wig, that's what you get.
I got the little dude selling poems in suits, smoking a cigarette.
They're all Funko Pops
Action
at this
item.
point, right? They're all Funko Pops. They're like everything down to the belly dancer.
Yeah, and Celine's her teeth change in each doll. You
Yep,
can get-
exactly.
Oh, what was that?
And
Each stage.
Hank is real hard to come by because he's gone
It's a
all the
collector's
time.
item.
Yeah,
It's a collector's item.
The first one is an embryo. The second one,
Sometimes it's just the box, like he's not
exactly.
in it.
And you can get the car that they're driving in too.
I didn't think that. I didn't think that there was no. I assumed that they made the first movie with full intent to make a second movie. I didn't expect.
Yeah.
So and
That's
like
interesting, too.
as the last one was coming up, I was like, man, these poor actors have gone through this pressure since the first movie to not necessarily change how they look too much, because they're going to have to do another movie where they play the same character and look the same.
Well, no, but I think the thing.
This is a perfect transition into this conversation.
But I think the thing
Yes.
is that the process for these movies isn't like, oh, we've got a grand
They have
design
got
for
like
this.
prosthetics.
They're more like, hey, let's
Ethan
go
got a
back.
nose
Let's
job,
go
we're
back
gonna
10
have to
years from
fix
now
it.
and figure out what it is we want to say about these characters. And I think the interesting dynamic is Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy are about 5 to 10 years younger than Richard Linklater. So he's the architect of like of what it's like to live in that period, and they're the ones that are kind of filling it with like the content that makes it work. There was another thing as well, which is that both these characters appeared in Waking Life. So
What?
there was. Have you seen Waking Life? His sort of dream narrative movie.
No.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I mean, it like a dream. It's gone.
Wait,
Yeah.
both of these
It's
characters.
like not about. It's like not. It's just a bunch of conversations,
Just a
but
bunch
it's
of people
all
rambling.
animated.
Yeah, it's a lot like Slacker, but it's a rotoscoped movie.
Is it the Animatrix of the Before trilogy? Is
Yeah.
that what you're telling me?
It pretty much is.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of like weird.
You know, he's made like
trippy
2 or 3
people talking
rotoscoped
with
movies.
weird, like with animations.
He's
on top
done
of
it.
Scanner
he's-
Darkly.
Yeah, Scanner Darkly as well.
It's
But
pretty.
and these two characters appear in that film, and it was kind of the
At what
testing
point?
They're well, I mean, do you want to? I can't remember the taxonomy of exactly how Waking Life works. But
No,
I'll tell-
not in the film. I mean, in the characters. I don't give a shit about that movie. I'm talking about the characters. When do we see, like, at what point in their lives do we see this scene in this film?
So they're in bed together, basically just having a conversation, and it's
Between the first and the second and the third?
I think you're MCUing it a little too
I'm
much.
going to
It's-
MCU everything into the fucking ground.
Yeah, there's got to be canon here. No,
Yeah.
it's just a scene with these two characters.
Okay, but
and
doesn't
then
it matter
2 years
where it
later,
is?
they decided to make a movie about it, and that's what I think is beautiful.
I'm sorry. This is before everything.
This is before. It's between
second
before
one.
sunrise and
Yeah.
before sunset. So,
Oh, okay,
but it's
so
not like.
got you.
But
Copy.
here's the thing, and if you try to look at it like that, and before sunset, they hadn't seen each other for 10 years.
So like it
Oh,
doesn't.
so it's
it doesn't-
after. It's after before sun. I'm going to timeline this. It's
Yeah.
probably between the second and the third one that takes place.
Yeah, no, you're not going to get anywhere
No,
with this. Yeah.
because it came out when I was in high school, so
Yeah.
it came out in like Waking Life came out in
Yeah.
like 2000.
I guess my point there is that I feel what I love about this is that it's the films are entirely about where these people are at their lives, and they're gonna just construct where they are at their lives.
Well, that's
It's
why
not-
I cared.
Okay, listen, this
Yeah.
is the superficial part.
Yeah, here we
of
go.
the
Here we go.
conversation. I thought Julie, I liked that Ethan made a commentary on how thin she was in the second one, because that's the first thing. I was like, whoa, she got really thin. Like her whole face was different. But I thought she looked great. I thought Ethan looked so busted in the second one. I was like, he looked so rough.
Always looked a little. Ethan Hawke always looks a little bit like he's got like a bucket of chalk thrown on him. Like, it's a little bit.
I was like, did you know you were shooting a movie? Son? Like,
Busted is kind of his brand, right?
I guess so.
It
Prince
worked
of
in the
Busted.
third. It
Yeah,
worked in the
well,
third.
but in the third, I felt like he looked a little bit. I mean, I think in the second one, he looked gaunt a little bit,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then like
Yeah.
in the third, I thought,
Oh, and he went to the airport in that fucking vintage tee. I was like, God, you're a father. You're a father.
You're a
Wear
father.
button-up.
Collar.
You're a father holidaying in Greece. You don't give a fuck about anything. Trust me.
Yes. Well, and he does. His character is a little immature. You
Yeah,
learn
he's
that.
got the long hair.
yeah.
I
yes,
thought-
he's a dude, bro. The whole
Yeah.
series.
But
Yeah.
that's I think that's what attracts her to him. But also what like really irritates her about him, because now they're 40 and he's still
And
the
he's
same.
still that.
Yeah, he's still the same guy. So that's why that argument kind of I don't know whose side I'm on, but I believe her side as well. Like I believe everything she's saying, and I believe
I believe they both believe what they're saying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In their own mind, they are 100% correct. Wait, Shivali, who in which films were the characters the most attractive in your mind's eye?
Celine definitely in the second film. I mean,
Absolutely.
she looked
She looked
amazing.
beautiful.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
She
jeans,
looked
that
great.
top with the you know the black.
Her
the-
style was like, very
everything.
cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She looked beautiful.
She was
I
very,
think she
What
looked
about-
great, all three of them.
Yeah.
She
honestly.
did actually. You're right. She
Yeah.
absolutely did.
What
She
about
aged very
what about Mr.
gracefully.
Hawk?
I just don't like the way.
That's what I'm talking
Hawkbird.
about.
He looks like he needs a shower.
Yeah. My first note is Hawk hasn't washed his hair since the second
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, they even say that in the films. She rags on him for his greasy hair.
She
at some point.
does. She
and
does.
it's again, it's interesting to watch these kind of in context now, like now having seen them and kind of going back to that first one and seeing how baby-faced they both were and how young they were and how like
Which is
10 years of
It's fun
smoking
to see
hasn't
that.
hasn't kicked in yet, but in the second film it's like it feels like they've aged much more, and I think that's what's actually kind of beautiful and works about the movie is that you come back to these characters and it's like where have they been? What have they been doing for this long period of time that
Right.
we haven't really
Because
seen?
there's kind of, I almost got the sense that there was a fourth movie written at one point that we don't see.
There could be.
Because they talk so much about the birth of the twins and the pregnancy and how dangerous
hard
it
it
was
was.
and how she almost died. And, you know, they were in New York. She had to move back to Paris for it. And I wonder if that was initially supposed to be another movie.
It could have been.
And possibly. I think so for the thing I had said beforehand about how the argument in the car felt like something that was familiar because we were invested in the characters and we sort of figured that that's something because we can all relate to that type of argument. The thing about the difficult childbirth, I feel like, was supposed to be a moment of like revelation and sort of help you key in to sort of everything that's been actually going on. And I don't think it works as well as the seed planting of the idea that he's sort of, sideline pressuring her to move to the United States.
No, but that's more
I
realistic.
thought that
to
moment
have
was
the two of
her.
those.
I thought the moment was her revealing that he possibly cheated, because as soon as he said that, Pat and I went, "Oh, that's why she's been acting like this the whole time. She's been thinking about him cheating this whole time.
yeah.
That's what all of this is, because she's doing that impression when they're at dinner
Yeah,
and she's
she's
like,
Yeah.
and then you're like,
No.
oh, she's talking about
Yeah,
whoever
she's
he slept
definitely-
with.
That makes sense. I'm sorry.
Mm.
I think I might have misspoke. I'm talking about when she brings up how difficult the childbirth was, like physically, like how she almost died.
Right, right. No, I know. I hear you. I'm just saying that like that moment for me
Gotcha.
was the
tie.
that reveal of like the possible
Yeah.
cheating.
So I don't know. We've been chatting about this for a little bit now. The thing about these films that I'm while I didn't enjoy. I guess, should we get into final thoughts? Do we have more points to make?
We should answer. Have we answered the questions that I think Laura set out for us? Which is,
Let's see.
Do we feel like the film takes an unbiased perspective on the couple, or do we feel like Ethan Hawke?
Ethan Hawke is the protagonist.
Right.
And I related, and I think biasedly sided with Celine more in it, but Ethan Hawke is the protagonist, I think, in these films.
I didn't think so. I thought they were at least equally represented. It might have. I think he was the more sort of aggressive of the couple. And that sort of felt like he controlled, especially the way it ended with him just being like, "Here's my little monologue," and she's like, "Yeah, all right, I'll stay with you."
Yeah.
And that kind of like put the ball like way into his court. But I think it was designed, and I felt that it was an equal representation of both of them.
I thought it was equal in the first one. I think in the second one, he was definitely the protagonist because he was kind of like the catalyst for them reconnecting, and it was really about, you know, his
book.
sense of urgency to leave in the book and all that stuff. Yeah, and then I think in the second one, it was also about him, you know, like wrestling with his parenting abilities and the possibility of moving to Chicago. So I think it turned into his story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how do you feel, Shivali?
Yeah, I think the focus was more on him.
Yeah.
I do, yeah.
I guess my feeling, yeah, I think, you know, Richard Linklater and Ethan Hawke have a stronger, like, they've made more movies together kind of thing, and they're always kind of coming back. I though feel that that it really depends on who you're interested in. That's what I kind of like about the movies, is that like the first time I watched it, I was really interested in his character. You know, the first time I watched Before Midnight, I was really interested in his character. The second time I watched it, I was really interested in her character and what she was doing. So it kind of...
I was much more interested in Celine the whole time, but I feel
Yeah.
like the protagonist is Ethan Hawke.
Okay.
We didn't know much about her, really. I mean, we knew she had some sort of career and
We
doing
did
something
see her
really
tits,
kind of
though. That's
interesting.
what I was saying. Second,
So,
third one, I was
God,
like,
really
oh, she's
intimate.
real.
So
She's a real
intimate.
person.
Well, that's the thing. Even in the second one, we're watching him be crazy successful at a book reading.
And we don't know anything about her.
And then she just
I don't know.
shows
That
up
book reading
there.
didn't seem that successful to me.
There's
It
a
seemed
small
like it was
book
a very
reading
small
in
bookstore.
France.
And
Yeah.
I did like that she was like,
Yeah.
that's my favorite bookstore.
And
I
I'm
just
sorry,
saw you
on a first
flyer
book
when I
deal,
was
you are
there.
not going on a book tour across, like, you're not leaving the country.
You're not
Yeah.
doing Barnes and Nobles.
No.
You're doing like the little...
I gotta say, the writers on writers thing, it just does bother me.
I do-
It's
Because it's not realistic.
No, and it reminds me. This is a tangent, but there was a friend of mine who wrote a story in college. You know, we all have friends who made films in college. We made films in college.
Yeah.
And they're all this bad as I'm going to describe. But it was about a poet whose poetry eventually saved the world.
Nice.
And I was like, and obviously that's the extreme of this, what we're talking about. But every time I see a story about a writer writing and how the writing is important, and seeing, Fran, the gleam in that woman's eyes in the hotel that you brought up, like this fucking zombie face.
It's like the Carrie Bradshaw effect. She's like, I'm a journalist and I have this big apartment. And I only write one column a week, and everybody knows who I am. I'm on the side of a bus. It's like, bitch, that's not what being a journalist is like.
Hey,
She's
she
a
works for Vogue from season 3 on.
Yeah, okay. She works for Vogue. I know people
Still in
that work
college.
at Vogue,
Still
and they
in
all
college.
have roommates.
Everyone should listen into Speaking of Carrie, our sister podcast.
Oh,
by
sister
the way.
podcast. Speaking of
That is
Carrie,
not
that
a
is
joke.
right.
I don't know
Toss
the
out to them.
She's
Check it out.
definitely not my
Okay.
roommate.
Elise, Jamie's roommate, so
But
co-host
I'm
of
just
Speaking of
saying,
Carrie.
it does have that quality of like, here's an idealized version of what it is to be a writer. You write a book and it's super successful, and then you go on this big tour, and
Yeah.
there's a journalist at your book signing sitting there being like, hey, I have a question. Well, what's your next book going to be like? Well, you got
They
any
cared
ideas?
way
you
too
got
much.
You got another idea about another book? And you're like, no, I do. I'm going to tell you my next book. Like, what? Get out of here. It doesn't work that way.
I guess the only thing is I never got the impression he was that successful a writer.
But no, so here's the
I've
deal.
never-
There's
I've never
not
got
like
the
throngs of
Like,
people.
He's going on a tour
It's
to
not.
Paris.
Yeah.
Like,
It's not like the thing I
there's
described.
something.
Yeah.
It's not like the thing I described about the poetry that saves the world, but everyone, so it's a small bookstore for those of you who haven't seen it, if you get to that point. It's a small bookstore. There's maybe like 12 people, 15 people in the audience, Celine being one of them eventually, you sort of see that. But every one of them has this doe-eyed, like looking like they
Yeah,
just
they're
found
all like-
fucking
they're
Santa
all like
Claus.
French
Well, and then they also
nerds,
have
like-
the thing. They have the thing of like people coming in off the street, like, oh my God, is that who I think it is? Like people are like walking in off the street to like see like this book signing.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm trying to think of how we even got to this point
Okay,
of
so
the
the
conversation.
question was, is Ethan Hawke's character?
Oh,
I think we've
he
kind of
100% is the protagonist.
I agree.
I think you can watch it in any way. I think it's kind of fairly balanced, as Patrick was saying.
I think
as well.
the first film is very balanced.
Yes.
And then I think it skews more.
Her second question was his interesting use of the concept of a trilogy to tell a story. We've kind of touched on that. She asked if we have any other suggestions for new takes. I'll give her a list of this is not the first time a filmmaker has taken a single actor or and done it over a couple of films. There's obviously in modern we've got the franchise building, but,
Sure.
but this idea has kind of been around for a little while. There's a fantastic trilogy of films called the Apu trilogy by Satyajit Ray, which looks at the same character at 3 different points of his life. And then, like Julie Delpy is also part of another trilogy of film by Christophe Krasowski called Red, White, and Blue, which features, themes across 3 different movies. What did you guys think about the fact, the idea that it was a trilogy and that they added up to something? Or did they?
As a person seeing it at a time where I could watch them all in the span of a month,
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was great, but I don't know that I would have felt the same having watched the first movie and then 8 years later been like, oh, there's another one?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I got a Sunday off, and then I don't know that it would have followed through for me. But
okay.
But I think if for the small percentage of people hitting it at the right time, that's fantastic. That's amazing. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't think it added up to anything. I mean,
Oh, that's
no.
right. I forgot, Pat.
It
You
was
hated
like
these.
no, it was just I'm not just.
It felt like a
just
thing
trying to hate
hanging
it.
over our heads. Like, we have 2 more. of
Just
these.
the sword of fucking midnight just
It was
over
true.
your
It was like,
head.
when are we going to squeeze these movies in? Are you home this night? No, I'm not home that night. Okay, are you going to be here this?
We had a little of that.
I would have loved a split screen of my brain and you guys watching it because I was like, I have to write notes and tears. I'm so happy. I'm so emotional. And then like you guys being like, fuck you.
No, I was taking like smoke breaks and being like, no, leave it running. Leave it running.
I'll come back.
No, I just didn't think it was like 3 slices of life, right, from the same couple's time together, and that's cool. And they represented very different places in their lives. I get that. I can even appreciate that. But then the life just kind of continues on. There's not really any sort of like significant theme that makes them add up to something for me. Just like, okay, here they were then, and then here they are now. Things aren't going great. maybe we'll check in later.
I mean, I guess I now, again, all this additional perspective is changing what I think. Not that it makes me like it more, but I understand the idea of trying to show something very hyper realistic, and I think it was successful in that aspect. Like,
I agree.
It was
Absolutely.
It was very slice of life. It was about like how mundane these conversations can be, but how important that they feel, and just the work that goes into a relationship and making it successful. I get all of that. I just don't think. I think that they could have made one movie and had these 3 elements in it, and it would have been just as successful, if not more successful for me, because it would have been one movie instead of 3.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Can I just say something about what I thought the theme might be?
yes,
and
please.
what was consistent? To me, it was about destiny and the concept of a soulmate, which is a load of rubbish. But I just thought that's sort of how the film,
And also how that idea like gets manifested and then it turns out to be not that. But
Does it?
Yeah, I think these two. I don't know. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, carry on.
I was saying I think it feels like the first film is like this idea that they've met their soulmate and it's going to go off and be romantic and it's going to be this beautiful thing. And then what we see in the second film is that she didn't turn up and he didn't, and he was there and he was waiting for her and it didn't happen, and they disagree about it and they realize that they're not perfect like they were in their imaginations. And then the third film is like marriage, shit gets real when you get married, it's like, after you have kids and it's like you're dealing with just the negotiation of life. It's like you don't have time to deal with somebody else's bullshit. And it's like this idea of the soulmate just kind of goes out the window, but they keep it together. And
Well-
I think,
We always joke it's about pheromones.
you think it's about smell?
No, you and we joke about
That
that.
is true. Yeah, I do. I do think a lot of like where you fall in love with someone has to do with like being attracted to their smell, like being comforted by the way they smell.
I mean, that's scientific, pretty much fact at this point. Is fair that you're there's biological sense that you do give off to your. That's how it works.
I know, and it's even more intensified when you have a kid. Like when you smell your kid.
Oh yeah,
it's like
because everything is nature's perfect obsession machine. To
except when they
Shivali's,
poop. I mean, then that's a different thing.
okay.
Depending on what they're eating.
Let's get back up. Back to Shivali's point before Shahir brought up excrement. I like the idea that you sort of frame it in that regard because I think it is about I like that. It's about soulmates. All 3 films are about soulmates, but like just like you sort of said, it is rubbish. Like the first one is what you think about is when you're young, you're like what you think a soulmate will be. The second one is about when you're like reconnected with the person you thought was your soulmate when you were young. The third one is about what happens if you marry your young 20-something soulmate and you're in it and you have a lot of responsibilities and it knocks you into that sort of, it takes you down the entire rabbit hole of what happens if you follow through with this entire, or what could possibly happen if you follow through with this entire gambit of staying with the same person throughout that. So I like that framework of it because I like the framework, and I think that's probably where they were going. I still will say the third one left me feeling bad.
Yeah, me too.
I think it should make you feel bad. That argument is a bad argument.
I blame that lame ending.
I agree. I think mostly it was that.
I don't even think it was the time travel thing. I think it was the end, them just being like, well, I guess we're just going to have a lot of
I
sex.
guess, yeah.
Like,
And
I was
Yeah.
so mad.
And the movie was so focused on sex too.
The third
It was
one
like,
especially.
Come on, guys, you guys have like real lives together.
Boobs.
Yeah,
Like,
it was
go on.
too
And
much.
you know what I'm just remembering? When Ethan Hawke is sitting outside with those guys and he sees the guy hanging out with the girl in the bikini, Ethan Hawke totally checks out that
Oh,
girl's
yeah.
vibe.
They all do.
Absolutely.
Or well, the
Absolutely.
2 younger guys do.
Yeah.
but
everyone
like,
does.
but they have this moment of
And then
like,
they exchange a glance, being like, "Huh?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that, well, this is a weird thing. I can't remember if there's a specific line, but they talk about that girl's boyfriend and how he's having the best summer of his life or something.
Yeah.
Like there's some like side comment.
Yeah.
I
So
don't
that
think
exists.
that's unrealistic.
No, that's totally
it's
realistic.
not
But-
unrealistic,
No,
but I'm just saying like is he's a sleaze the entire movie. I think the whole trilogy. I think of him as a sleaze.
She's right. I think he does need that kind of like younger,
validation.
Yeah, validation.
Yeah, and I don't.
Is that villainous? No.
No.
Is it?
It's human. It's
Yeah.
human nature.
He has human sleaze.
Yeah.
He's not like a. He's not a. I don't want to. That's the sort of interesting thing. I don't want to paint him as sleazy. But I think he, as a character, especially in a what I would consider a romance film, he is more real than in most romance
Oh
films.
no! I think he's a sleaze. He comes on so strong in the first movie. He's like, so tell me about the first time you fell in love. Just like, oh, like shut up.
He was prancing around for like a
But listen,
gross.
listen. The first film, and I'm just
He
going
was
to
like
speak
leaning
for me.
into her so close.
Of
Like
course.
every time they were talking, she was like, I don't know. One
Gentlemen-
time I did this. He was like,
Gentlemen in the
leering at her the whole time.
gentlemen in the room, when we were all early 20s, we did maybe not the exact same amount of stupid that Ethan Hawke did in the first film.
But you had your
I didn't
own
think he was
brand of
that
stupid.
But we did. Oh,
in
he
the
was
first-
very stupid.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think it was. I don't know that I would call him stupid.
Well, I'm
but
talking.
like-
I guess I'm trying to sort of transition away from the word sleaze, but I'll accept that. We all had our brand when we were 20 something
Yeah.
of a little bit of sleaze.
I don't know if it was sleaze. I
Yeah.
think it was just complete. I mean, like something like ineptitude. Like I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know what I'm
But
doing.
that's-
I'm trying to like
You
fit
were,
this role
you were
sometimes.
naive.
But
You
that's
were
what I
naive
read.
in the perception that you were cynical.
I like ineptitude too because he didn't come off as sleazy to me in the first film. He came off as inept. He came off as a dummy. He came off as someone trying to be smooth who was not.
And the second film, I thought he was desperate. Like there's a moment in the park.
no.
Hold on. There's a moment in the park where she suggests, what if we just had sex right now as a joke? And he grabs her and runs
he's
the
like a little
and he like immediately and she's
That's
like
sleazy.
That
no,
was there in
no,
that
that's
first one.
desperate. That was like, oh boy, dude, you need to like really.
And then
Married,
it was
so-
right after that she's like, so I read you have a wife and child.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was like right after that moment,
Yeah.
I think that they have that conversation.
So
Sleaze.
that's where I start.
That is sleaze.
That's where I start agreeing with you. Is the
He
second
has a
film.
wife and a kid, and he's literally. She's like, "You're gonna miss your plane." He's like, "That's okay." I'm like, "Sleaze." He's like, "That's fine with me."
Whoa, that last moment really didn't work for you, right? Like, because when I was like, oh, you're gonna miss your plane, I was like, oh, these two are gonna be together.
Now
I was
they,
like, "You have a kid.
You do,
Go home."
yeah, you do. I couldn't
You're gonna miss
so-
your family.
I liked the second film a lot, but I couldn't shake that idea at the end that like, what's that phone call going to be? What
Right,
do
there
you
are-
say at the end?
there
And
are
you
other
learn
people
that,
in this
like,
relationship that we
his
don't see,
ex-wife
right?
In the third movie,
Now-
not only hates him, but is possibly abusive alcoholic, and like how much of that is because
he
was
decided
like,
to
I
not
don't-
come home.
I don't feel love. There's no laughter, and she was on board. Like how you know?
Yeah, there is a definite thing where the film does, and this is a good job to the filmmaker, but it does the thing where it twists the situation to the point where you are, even because you only see Ethan Hawke's perspective, you only see that perspective of. Now, granted, she could be just as bad as
could.
Ethan Hawke is suggesting. However,
She could have become an alcoholic because she got knocked up by some sleazy dude
Yep.
who then went off and then wrote a book about some other chick that he fucked in a park, and then he flew off, and then he saw her, and then he didn't come home, and then she had to drink herself to sleep.
I mean, that's
Relationships are messy, yo.
They did, but they
She
didn't
didn't take care of a kid.
They decided to get married, like they
Well,
were
that-
dating
because-
on
because
and
that's
off,
the thing,
and then
is
she
this-
got pregnant. That's how they had a child.
Yes.
But
I'm
it's-
not kidding. That's what they said.
Yeah.
That's a script.
But then he marries that
It's a
person and has kids with her and lives with her in Greece now. I mean, it's
No,
the,
no,
the
no,
spectrum of the
no,
marriage.
no,
I'm
you know.
talking about the
The
first
first
one.
Right, right,
The
yeah.
first-
But I'm
the
saying,
first
like,
wife.
you know, it's not like I'm not defending him. I'm just saying that the whole point is the relationship is not idyllic. It's messy. It's like they have attachments when they come back, which are the stakes that she's got a boyfriend.
A big
Yeah.
trope of the third movie is that
Yeah.
you don't just leave life behind.
Yeah, exactly. So they it's messy, and I think if you, I think the thing that I think is great about it as well, if you think about these as romantic films, they're the most realistic romantic films I think I've probably ever seen.
But then you could get into the conversation of, is romance realistic, or is it something that people build with each other in their mind? Like, there's
Jamie, tell us what you think
Yeah.
about that.
Ooh, that is deep.
I can't. But I will say, after relating in different ways to the first and second film, in anticipation of the third film, which we had to wait longer
We
to
did.
watch.
I think we spent.
Because you were borrowing
scheduling.
out.
Yeah, because we're borrowing your
I
copies.
was a little bit scared because I was like, "Fuck, stuff's
Wow,
gonna
y'all are
happen in
old
this
school.
movie
You borrowed
where
a
we
copy
borrowed,
of the
we
movie.
borrowed
Oh yeah,
DVDs.
they're on my cabinet back there.
Wow.
But I was like, I'm going to see things in this that future me would probably relate to based on the past two movies, but I won't know. And now I'm a little terrified because there was a lot of shouting and yelling and real bleak
I
stuff.
spoiled the third one for Pat.
I don't know. Yeah, I know. The single bit of mystery that I had in this
I
trilogy.
just IMDb'd it. I was like, did you know they get married in the next one, Pat? I was
know.
like, Fran.
Mother.
Well, it's like the first 5 minutes.
Three. You know, it'd be weird if in the third movie they were like,
That
"Oh,
was
what are you
in
doing?
outer
Yeah.
space.
What
Yeah.
are you doing?
That
in
was
this, TJ Maxx?"
the only little light bulb moment that I had to look forward to.
Part 3, they got out of like the cryo
And she
tube.
took it right from me. Anyway, I wanted to address what you said, Matt. I think if you have two people who are feeling romance together, then it's real. It is a real thing,
And that's
because
my
it's a
question.
social thing, and that exists. I think it exists I'm going to say it might be in people's minds, but in the sense that it's in their minds and they're sharing it, then that's their reality.
100%, because the only things that are actually real are what we can perceive. But my question
Oh
then,
my God,
to
you guys, we are
retort
having the
back-
deep conversations
We
that
are.
happen in
So
this.
like,
Oh my
what if
God.
like we're
I
all
feel
like
like we should be
introverted
walking
to
through a
the-
park right
We
now.
You
should-
guys
we
should be
are.
holding hands.
But here's the deal. Here's the deal. My question
I'll
is,
film it
yeah, you will, you creep.
from the bushes.
Nice touch.
Can you experience is romance something that can only be truly experienced with as a connection of two people, or can like because what I'm trying to get to is like, if a single person is sort of a hopeless romantic, they're either creepy or a fool. But if you're romantic with
well,
a person,
those are two very
But
on
think
one
about-
side of that coin.
but think about
Yeah.
the way it sort of works out.
Yeah,
If-
if it's not reciprocated,
That's my
then
point.
yeah, you're a
So-
creep.
or a fool, like you can be not creepy, but you could be foolish in your
Right.
Anytime
lust for
anyone has ever said, "I'm a hopeless romantic," I'm like, don't.
I like Shivali. I think if neither of us were into the other person, then the conversations we had when we hooked up.
We're both hopeless romantics.
And if one of us wasn't, it would have just been, then one of us would have been a creep. But if but
Yeah.
to Patrick's point,
That was actually very deep.
I mean, think about it this way: like if you're into the person who's like making overtures towards you, then it is romantic.
That's
right?
what I'm saying.
Like,
But
So if
that's-
it's not
but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, if it's
That's
not
a good point.
reciprocated, either you're like you said, you're being foolish or you're being creepy, because either you are the guy who is like following the girl in the red hoodie, or you know what I mean, like you're tracking her.
That is one way to-
movements.
that is
Or
one way to
you're-
look
I don't
at it.
think this is
You're in
true.
a
Bush. You're like, I think I'm gonna write a movie about that
She's
girl. She's like, oh my God, who's that guy?
She's like, that tall Indian is following me.
this has definitely been this has been the long con.
Guys,
the whole time.
I'm going to a bar, and if I don't come home, there's a tall Indian dude that you should be looking for.
Oh my
That's
God.
that's your brand, Shahir.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
So yeah,
But on the
But
romantic
luckily-
note, have you guys seen The Greatest? Because
The what?
there's a
yeah, the one where she
It's
the
very
partner
sad.
dies,
It's
right?
very
yeah.
sad. Yeah,
Spoiler.
Well,
It's in the trailer.
No, it's in the and also like the first 5 seconds
Yeah.
of the movie.
it's fine. I'm probably not gonna see
Yeah.
it.
It's,
this
Pierce
this
Brosnan's
family.
in it,
Pierce
right?
Brosnan and Susan Sarandon are the parents.
And who's the daughter?
they're-
It's
Mulligan. Carey
Carey Mulligan. Yeah.
It's this family. Their son dies in a car accident. You come into the movie and they're mourning his loss. It's hard. It's awful. He's like 16 or 18 or so. He's a teenager. And then this girl shows up essentially on their doorstep, and she's pregnant with his child. And they are like, well, we have to take her in, but they're in like angry mourning phase, and everyone's in different positions, and Pierce Brosnan's character's in like suffering from insomnia, and Susan Sarandon is just like full of quiet, silent rage. This isn't the part that relates to you guys, but there's a big, beautiful part of it where it's these two people in high school, and they don't talk, they don't spend time together, but they pass each other every day, and they just smile at each other, and they just have this
Does one of
moment.
them run
There's
away?
like it's like essentially like a staircase where
Yeah.
they have a connection every day, but that's all they have.
Is one
Yeah.
of them hiding in the bushes while Patrick and I
No,
are
no, no,
holding hands?
no, no. It's consensual.
No,
It's
but-
very lovely. It's
yeah.
a beautiful film.
That's
Everyone
the
should
third
see it.
movie.
My mom rented it on Netflix, and we went through a whole box of tissues watching the
I've
film.
listened to the soundtrack to that movie a bunch of times, but I've never actually watched the movie.
It's tremendous. It's
Yeah.
really good. But you know, it's Anyway, that's unrelated.
Okay, so oh, do you have a?
Well, I kind of wanted to just to that question of like how this works as a trilogy. There's I've just bought the box set to this, and it comes with a little booklet on.
Yes, you're holding it.
Yeah,
I saw you.
You are so real deal.
Yeah, I'm real deal when it comes to this. So this is written by
Have you ever
Dennis
taught a
Lim.
class?
Oh, he's been a professor.
I know that was. Sorry, that was.
Yes!
Yeah.
That was a deep cut.
Yeah,
Friend,
it was
that's
a
like
deep
your
cut.
third burn this episode.
But I'm impressed
so
that you
good.
missed it, which is kind of what's great about it.
I know, Shivali, you didn't even like. You
Yeah,
didn't
I was
acknowledge-
like,
you were like, whatever.
that's
She
the
I
joke.
was
No.
trying to have my co-host back for only a moment, and then I just abandoned him.
But I like this. I like this little paragraph. This is written by Dennis Lim, who's the programmer at the Film Center of the the Film Society of the Lincoln Center. He said, "Each film is a window onto a stage of life, sharply attuned to the possibilities and disappointments of one's 20s, 30s, and 40s. Taken together, they have become something much larger and more radical, an ongoing collective experiment in embodying the passage of time. Watching them entails a very particular form of viewer participation, as Celine and Jessie openly wrestle with the transience of love, the deceptions of time, and the specter of mortality. We are obliged to do so as well in ways that relate to our own lives." So I think that was, I think, Patrick's shaking his head
Oh,
on
I'm
this one.
sorry. I'm sorry. I yes, we are obliged to do that.
Because
But you
someone
don't
asked
have
you on
to
a
watch
podcast.
a movie to be obliged to consider your mortality, where you are in life, and your relationships. Like, that happens anyway. I'm just saying. But we gave credit to the films for giving that to us.
Right.
Nice.
I mean, you might not
Sorry.
get that when a Transformers movie, I'm just saying. Or
I mean,
some-
I haven't seen The Last Night, so maybe it's in there.
So I think,
I felt a lot of tender vulnerability in Michael Bay's series. I'm kidding. Never.
yeah, especially when Bumblebee pees on someone, it's the best. So I guess, to kind of round out our final thoughts on the film, did it allow you to reflect on your own life in some way?
I think it. No, I don't think it did. I think I reflect on my life as a person consistently anyway. I mean, like, I'm a very reflective person.
I imagine you in the
self-reflective.
mirror every morning saying, "You're going to have a great day today."
No, I don't do that. I don't pep talk myself, but I do like
That's not reflection.
digest.
It is. There's a
Literal
reflection.
reflection.
Again, joke.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hugh.
But yeah, no, I mean, I tend to be that type of person anyway. I'm fairly introspective. I consider the things that happen. I'm somewhat romantic in my assessment of life and how I live it. And this is like watching somebody else do that and being like, wow, I could have actually spent that time doing it myself.
Do you empathize with any other media though? Like, is film just not the thing for you? Like, do you feel this way if you've read another book or another film?
I feel strongly. I cried during the last Rambo when he returned home.
You really did.
I was.
That's a great credit sequence when he's just walking down the thing towards the farmhouse. I catch what you're throwing.
I'm just
But
saying.
was that the last movie you cried at?
No. I have a long history of crying at movies, beginning with The Land Before Time.
Yeah.
But I'm totally willing to be emotionally pulled by a movie, and these it had it, but I was like, this is life, and because this is life, I should go be living mine. Especially the last one, where it was a fairly realistic
Fight.
argument that went on for like an hour, and I'm just like, my God, it's like being in a dinner with a couple that's fighting. You're like, I just wish I could leave this table right now, and I could, because they couldn't see me, and so I kind of did a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's how I feel about these movies.
All right.
Go live your own life. Don't watch somebody else live theirs.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I'm 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I mean, I think, again, the perspective that I have, like, from this conversation, I appreciate, like, the attempt that was made. I just don't necessarily think that the execution really did it for me. I like the idea of slice of life and something that's examining the realities of a relationship. And I even liked that passage just about how time can be deceptive, because that's something that I think about in relationships all the time, where sometimes you hold on to a friendship because you have a lot of history, but like the friendship is over.
Yeah.
And in many ways that might be part of what happened in this story, that they had this amazing story and they had all this time. So like they were maybe holding on to something that maybe should be over. So I think that that's interesting. I just don't necessarily feel like it did the best job of presenting it in a way that was exciting and kept my attention. So yeah, I'm kind of like lukewarm on it. I didn't hate. I mean, I left hating it, and now I'm kind of like ambivalent.
We brought you to ambivalence.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. We raised the meter.
Shivali?
So I like the films. I liked them more as I watched them. Don't watch them when you're sleepy because you probably will fall asleep. And I think it's nice to watch them over a couple of weeks. So take from them what you can.
All right.
Jamie?
As much as I related and felt in the first two films, because I'm the one who feels.
You are the one who feels.
I think ultimately, even though I didn't like the ultimate ending, the third film said the most to me because it was, again, a realistic way of, but a more narrative structure of an argument and two people's perspective. I learned the most watching the third film.
It's the ghost of Christmas future.
No, but as it was happening, and I think our conversation even amplifies it. The antagonistic perspective of Celine became suddenly validated as this one person's perspective and nature sort of comes to light, and while they're having this argument, there were still realistic parts of it that I loved. I loved that their argument had ups and downs. I loved that she kind of I loved this. She realized during the conversation that she had never completely recovered emotionally from the pregnancy and the birth. But then they didn't really follow up on that.
Yeah.
That bothered me. I really wanted to hear more about that. But then, the ending was different. And even, I'm not romantic, but even, I don't know. I'm not a textbook romantic, but even, when he showed up and was like, I'm a time traveler, I was like, oh, he's gonna do a thing. But then she just then she was like, no, don't do the thing. And then it was this real moment again, and I was into that, but then it stopped being, I don't know. I'm on a tangent. I'm sorry about that. I don't know. I liked these movies very much to watch them. Did I learn a lot from the first two? No. Was it a tremendous exercise in memory and empathy? Yes. Is it really fun to see how your hair changes when you're older?
Yeah.
So fun. So fun, you guys. Also the 90s fashion, just on point. I'm done talking. I'm done talking. Oh, no, wait. I want one more thing. It's not related to anything we've talked about, but I just want to plant a seed. When they're in the car, Ethan Hawke is criticizing her boss, who she's considering to go take a different job for, and he's like, it's just, all I see is that in that guy is ambition, and he says it as a bad sign. He doesn't like it. And then they're sitting around the dinner table, and they're at this dinner table in Greece because this man has invited Ethan and his family. His name's not Ethan, it's Jesse. Jesse and his family to come stay with them, and they're talking about his writing, and he says, your writing is just so ambitious. And it's
so he's
just
a lying
up there.
sleaze.
I don't think it's a sleaze moment, but it's
hypocritical.
complicated. It's complex. There's a lot of this movie that's just human complex in ways that don't necessarily conclude, and I like that about it. And I like that moment, and everyone should just think about that moment.
All right.
The end.
Do you want to go? Or do you want me to go? We should wrap it up.
I'll jump in here just quickly. I do love these films. I love them unabashedly. I love them for all the reasons you mentioned, that they are romantic, but they're complicated. They're messy. Things don't work out. Things get very, very ugly. And I think that is a sort of a beautiful testament to how committed everyone working on these films were to present something that's real, that is a snapshot of a moment that actually feels like it has tangible value to and relates to the way real people communicate with each other. I think, I don't think this is a teaching tool for our marriage or anything like that, but I think it's for me, I watch it and I reflect on things that I do, and things that the way that I respond to dilemmas we have in our lives and problems that we encounter. So I think it's a beautiful testament to that. I think it's a beautiful sustained testament, the idea of coming back to these characters, and they're not doing it because they're like out of ideas, or they're not doing it because they're like trying to make money on it. They're doing it because they're like, where are these people? Like, I kind of want to know where these people are at this moment, and how is that interesting? And I think that's compelling and dynamic. I love this. Guillermo del Toro was quoted on Twitter recently, and his quote was, I think someone asked him what his favorite superhero trilogy of all time was, and he said that before sunrise, before sunset, before midnight, he says it's harder to live for someone than it is to die for them. And I thought that was a beautiful summation of that idea of what these films are. They are supposed to be reflective of real life. They are supposed to be authentic to your everyday experience. And that's not something we kind of touch on. And then, yeah, like you, I found there are so many beautiful moments in this trilogy that bring me to tears, that make me feel joy. Thinking about some of the way the music and the settings, being in Venice, Greece, and Paris, and kind of feeling that romance of those places juxtaposed against this couple that are really struggling. They're really having a hard time of putting this all together, but they're still putting it together. I think it's really beautiful. My favorite scene in all three of the movies is the dinner table scene in the third movie. I think that is just an extraordinary scene with extraordinary dialogue and writing. And what was beautiful about it was the old woman at the table. Who is silent the entire conversation. She's basically listening to this older couple talk about, their relationship, a younger couple talking about how they met. And at the end of it, she suddenly comes in and says, she starts reminiscing about, her husband who had passed away, and and how she's trying to hold on to that memory. And she says sometimes it feels like their ghost is passing through. And she ends it with this quote, which I think is just beautiful. She says, "We appear, we disappear, and we are important, and we are so important to some, but we're just passing through." And I think that's what these movies are. They're just this examination of this moment that happens. That's why I love them.
Well, I really wish you went last, because that was a great ender, but now I'm just going to steamroll over your beautiful words.
We can toast to it at the end.
Well, yeah.
we
totally can. We can. Thanks for, we'll just call it out now, and then we'll never do it, just like the end of the movie. No, look, I like this trilogy. I went in not thinking I would like this trilogy. I think it is worth a watch for anyone who would enjoy the type of things and the weird sort of like interpersonal relationship stuff that we've all discussed this entire time. Whether or not they work sort of as, I was debating a lot whether or not they work as sort of standalone films. I don't know if they do. But again, I am the prince of sort of doing, I like films that intertangle with one another, and sequels and franchises and world building, etc. And this does that in spades. Patrick, to your point, I am of the camp of like, why do I need to experience a thing that I'm probably already going to experience in my life? I go to films to experience things I cannot experience, maybe tied with a small bit that does like relate to me. Mm-hmm. There's a reason. There's The Parenthood is a show. Is that correct? There's a reason I don't watch The Parenthood, not because it's not good, but because I'm like, I don't want to watch all these people suffer in a way that I'm probably going to suffer at some point very similarly to it. Right. And now I'm going to go back to sort of our conversation about romanticism and how that can sort of change things, and how when you're with the person, romance actually works. But even though when you're alone, it doesn't quite do so. What these films did for me, and I will even say, even to the end of the third one, which I didn't particularly like the ending, but what it does is it lets you go along for a ride as an individual and look into two actual people's lives and what their quote romance is. And a lot of films get that feeling wrong, and these films get that feeling 100% right, and I appreciate them for that, and I'm glad I had the experience. Will I go back and watch them again? I don't think so. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that they haven't affected the way that I sort of view romance relationships, etc. And I will every once in a while, even with the tinge of my own memory being wrong and twisting it in its own way as it moves forward, there will be moments in my life, I feel like, where I will be like, oh yes, like especially from the third one in a weird way, like I feel like it is a weird glimpse into a possible fraction of a future, and that's a weird, cool thing. So I'm glad these films exist. I'm glad they watched them, that I watched them. I'm glad they were made, and I think other people should watch them to determine what camp out of all of our 6 camps that they fall into. So with that in mind, this has been the only podcast about the Before trilogy. I think this might be our longest episode ever.
But it's also an episode where we talk about 3 movies.
100%.
With 6 people. So it's fine.
Yeah, no. Wow, this has been super, super fun. I'm going to go around the room starting with my lovely partner, Jamie. Jamie, when you are not waxing ecstatic about all of the notes that you took across all of these films, where can folks find you?
You can find me, I guess, on Instagram at JimJamWalsh. I'm also on Twitter at the same title. Is that what I have to say?
Yeah, that's what you did.
Yeah, I'm good. I did it.
You did a good job.
You can just look it up. It's
Fran,
great.
Patrick, when you are not watching films that we asked you to do,
Hate watching.
but you did it. You did it with such panache and style, and I'm so happy you are here. When you are not humoring us with watching these films, where can folks find you?
Well, Patrick and I host a podcast called Last Name Basis. You can find it on any app that you get your podcast. We're also recently on Spotify, which we're very excited about.
Nice.
I also host a show for MTV News called Decoded, which you can watch on Facebook. We're coming back for season 7 in the fall, which I'm very excited about.
Nice.
You can also find me across social media at Chesca Lee, ChescaleIGH.
And
weird name.
You've just written a book, haven't you?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Tell us about your book.
Yeah, let's do that.
Just a little thing.
Yeah, maybe that was why I was projecting onto Ethan Hawke. I'm like, it's not fucking like that. I recently wrote a book called Well, That Escalated Quickly, Memoirs and Mistakes of an Accidental Activist. It's about communication on the internet, how great it can be, but also how awful it can be, and the lessons that I think that we can all stand to learn about how we talk to each other online and in real life.
Nice.
And you can find it at any bookstore or online. It's digital too. You can also get the audiobook, which is read by yours truly.
Do you think it'll be in that,
Awesome.
in that little French bookstore?
I don't know. If it's not in your bookstore, you can absolutely ask them to carry it.
There you go.
There you go.
Very nice. Since Fran already mentioned our podcast, Last Name Basis, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at TieOptional. And I think that's about it.
Nice. Shivali.
I'm not really big on media, but you can Google me.
And Shahir, when you are not across from me, where can folks? I just did the whole thing. Where are people looking for you?
I'm never not across from you.
That's
That's
fair.
pretty much what we do.
fair.
You can find me at shahirdaud.com. That's ShahirDaud.com. Matt, when you are... is the thing you do eulogizing the end of a podcast? It's not. It's soliloquying, monologuing.
I kind of like
You're
eulogizing.
eulogizing the passing of time of this podcast. Where can people find your time capsule of life?
When you're not reflecting on the end of a listening experience, you can find me at mattthewkrol.com for my life and works. Also, Skeletor for the number 4 PREZ on Instagram, or Emperor MSK on Twitter. Also, check out Extra Credits. I'm narrating some crazy stuff on there. We got some stuff about the flu pandemic. We're doing some history of VR coming up. It's gonna be dope.
Lit.
What?
Sorry, I was going to be lit. No, I'm still in
can't
8th
be
grade.
both lit and dope. Everybody, Fran, Patrick, Shivali, Jamie, thank you so much for coming and doing this.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
This sweltering room. Zoe, thanks for being quiet for most of it, my cat, and we'll see you next week.
To passing through.
To passing through.
Oh, do we have to make the
pass-
clink noise? Let's
Yeah.
make the clink noise.
Passing through.
Clink, 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 clink. Are we through? Did we pass it like a kidney stone?
You ruined it. You ruined it, Matt. You ruined it.